Hello everyone, this is your friend from Naruto Audio Fanfics, and we are back once again with a brand new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto went back in time with Sakura, to rewrite fate before death claimed them all, part 3. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to hit the like button, thumbs up. And subscribe to the channel for more amazing Naruto fanfics like this. So without wasting any more time, let's start today's fanfic. Good job, Ten-chan. Sasuke said as he let go of the grab she was held in. In a few years you might be up to my level. That's good to know, Tenten sighed, landing on the ground, with Sasuke following close behind. It was midday, and it had been about 3 weeks and a half since the both of them had gotten together. It was only a couple of days until the Chunin exams would be occurring. Gaara, and more importantly Orochimaru, will be coming soon. Sasuke looked up towards Tenten. I have to get going now. This is the last day I can train you as well. I need to prepare for the Chunin exams myself. But you're already Chunin, why would you prepare for it? She asked. Because I will be one of the many people watching over the exam as it goes on. I'll be there to make sure you and everyone else will be safe. He said, giving her a smile. She nodded. That makes sense. She got up and helped Sasuke get up and said, well, I guess we won't have much time to see each other after today until the exams end. She looked slightly down. Don't worry. Sasuke lifted up her chin and kissed her. I'll watch out for you. She grinned and hugged him. I know you will. Just watch out for yourself too, because I'll be too busy to do it myself. Sasuke nodded. I know, and don't worry about that. I'm more than skilled enough to be beaten by anyone. Don't let all that power go to your head now. She giggled slightly and tapped his head. Of course, he sighed and began to walk away. Tenten, please be careful. The exams will not be easy. Tenten rolled her eyes. Yes, Sasuke, I will. I promise. Sasuke nodded and disappeared in a swirl of leaves. Hokage Tower. Sarutobi sat at his desk once more like he would any day. In front of him stood Kakashi, Naruto, Sakura, and an empty spot was for Sasuke. This meeting would be to discuss the future plans of what to do during the exams. For the 4, soon to be 5 people, in the room were the only ones who knew of the things that were going to pass. Suddenly, several leaves flew into the room and twisted around one spot to the left of Naruto, who stood with Sakura on his right and Kakashi behind him. He, Sakura, and Kakashi all wore their Anbu gear, and like his students, Kakashi had removed his mask, finding no use of it any longer. For if his students were willing to let everyone know who they were, he was too. Kakashi had advanced further in this timeline than the last, or so his students told him. He had built upon his skills he had previously let rot if he hadn't been placed back in the Anbu as the captain of this small squad. He of course, could not say he didn't enjoy his time with the children. Once Sasuke appeared in the room, Sarutobi spoke. Welcome Sasuke, you took your time. Sasuke, who had taken a little extra time to get his Anbu uniform on, replied, yes, I was busy helping Tenten out. This is the last day we had together and I wanted to review all that she had learned. And probably other things as well. Naruto smiled at Sasuke's blush. Look, he shouted at Naruto, I didn't do anything with her that night. I just stayed the night at her house and slept with her. Realizing what he said, he sighed, not in that way. Naruto nodded. Sure Sasuke, whatever you say. When the silence came, Sarutobi began to speak once more. The Chunin exams are going to be held within 3 days, I'm sure you all are aware of this. Yes, Hokage-sama. All of them spoke professionally. Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke. He turned his gaze on them all. Once this meeting is done, I am going to place you all in charge of finding this year's participants, and giving them this slip to write their name, village, and age. After that, give it to me and I'll look them over. I have already given them to all the rookie team leaders and several other genin squad leaders. I'll be sure to give you the list and name of them when they come in so you won't go to the same person twice. Sakura spoke up. Hokage-sama, what if we don't find anyone, or what if they enter the village just hours before the exam? Sarutobi smiled. I'm surprised by how much you underestimate your own power. I believe you will find them all. And if worse comes to worse, simply hire more people to help in the search. Those that come late will not be listed for the exam, and thus will not participate this year. Thanks. Sakura said. knowing that what Sarutobi had said was a compliment. Okay, we've our assignment. Now we need to speak about what is going to occur. Sasuke said, I suggest that you have your entire Anbu force active during the exams, for maximum security. Kakashi nodded. Yes, and from what I am told, I'll make sure to lead the outer wall defenses if the need comes for it. Naruto also took this moment to speak his mind. We need Jiraiya to come here and be with you when the third stage of the exams is taking place. If we could also somehow find Tsunade and get her to come here as well, that would help immensely. I don't know about Tsunade, but I can get Jiraiya to get here. I haven't seen or heard from Tsunade in years. Sarutobi rubbed his head. She has lost hope in this village and. Sakura interrupted him. Sorry for being rude, but we know this already. Oh, yes. Sarutobi said grinning. How could I forget where you all are from? This Gaara child. How big of a threat is he going to be? Kakashi asked. Naruto looked down. Unlike Orochimaru, we can't kill Gaara. He's too important for the future of the Sand Village, so that narrows down our options. He looked towards the ceiling. I can't use Kyuubi's chakra at all during the fight, or else Shukaku will go full power and try stopping me. Last time I managed to get lucky, but I don't want to take that chance again. Naruto. Sasuke said, I remember that fight. I recall you with your giant toad friend turning in a Kyuubi look-alike. Why wouldn't that make Shukaku go to his full power? It surprised Shukaku enough to lower his defenses so we could get in close and knock Gaara back into the world of consciousness. Naruto sighed. This time, if I fight him, let alone all three of us, he won't be as easy to surprise because he'll be expecting many more things. A giant toad? Sarutobi asked. Are you talking about Gamabunta? Naruto smiled. Yep. I tried summoning him, but it appears I can't do that in this timeline yet until I sign Jiraiya's toad contract in blood. Sasuke sighed. It's going to be tough getting the snake contract from Orochimaru this time around. Sakura looked happy at the thought of seeing her summon again. I can't wait to see Katsuyo again. She's such a sweet and kind summoned animal to have. Tsunade's slug contract. Sarutobi guessed, to which Sakura nodded in confirmation. Wow. It seems you kids get more interesting every day. Kakashi laughed, and to think that I thought I learned all about you already. I was about to offer you all my dog contract, but since you all have your sights on other things, I guess I'll take back my offer, seeing as you can only have one summon at a time. Naruto grinned. Thanks for the thought, sensei. Back on topic now. Sarutobi said, during the third stage, I am assigning you three to deal with Gaara. He pointed to Sakura, Naruto and Sasuke. Kakashi, like you said, you will help with the village defense, try to make sure nothing comes in, sound or sand. They all nodded. Please, during that time I want all of you to be careful. While I fight Orochimaru with Jiraiya, I will pray and make sure you all will be okay. Hokage-sama. Sakura said, Orochimaru is going to appear during the second stage and try to find Sasuke. Don't worry about it, Sasuke said, I plan on killing Orochimaru before the invasion begins. Naruto nodded. Yeah, if all goes well, that snake bastard won't be doing anything important in this timeline at all, besides rotting in the forest of death. Remember though, do not underestimate him. He will still be very powerful. Stick together and I believe you three will be fine. Sarutobi said, I believe we have all of the stages covered however. You three are dismissed, do not forget your assignments. Yes Hokage-sama. They all said before taking their leave. Kakashi nodded at Sarutobi. So, are we going to assist them in their hunt for Orochimaru in the second stage? If they do end up finding Orochimaru and engage him in combat in the Forest of Death, wait several moments before going in yourself. We want him to be weakened before our main forces go for the kill. I don't want any more deaths than necessary, and I trust those three to deal with him until help arrives. Sarutobi said, and do nothing about Gaara. He's the Kage's son. I doubt he'll like it very much if his son is suddenly assassinated. Even if it's Orochimaru in disguise, it could spark the war that they are planning. Kakashi nodded. That's true. I hope this will go according to plan. Sarutobi sighed. I haven't the desire to see this village in ruins. Who else would? Kakashi asked. Beside Orochimaru, of course. Outside of the Uchiha district. Naruto walked out of the Uchiha district wearing his Chunin vest, allowing the sunlight to hit his face as he let out a content sigh. Looking for all these kids entering the exam was going to be such a pain, but he knew that the old man was counting on him. What are you two waiting for? Naruto called out to them. Sasuke stepped out with Sakura barely a step behind. This is going to be a pain in the, but to prove to Sarutobi we can be trusted, we have to do so. Sasuke sighed. We should get to our task now. Yeah, let's do this as fast as possible, Sakura said. Suddenly a box exploded near them. 3 figures could be seen in the smoke. Ha! One yelled out, only managing to sound weird when it began to cough. I think there's too much smoke. It said through its fits of coughing. Naruto's eyes lit up. Konohamaru is it. The kid jumped out and threw several wooden shuriken. I am surprised you have heard of me. The shuriken bounced off Naruto's chest easily. It seems even enemy villages know us very well. You spy. Konohamaru pointed at Naruto. I heard everything that kid. He pointed to Sasuke then, said, you all are spies. 2 other figures jumped to the side of Konohamaru. I'm Moegi. The most beautiful female ninja to walk the earth. A little girl cried out, her hair tied into 2 very weird-looking shapes on her head. And I'm Udon. The most intelligent ninja to walk the face of this earth. The kid to the other side said. He wore huge glasses and looked sick. Sakura held in her laugh, and Sasuke fared no better. Naruto grinned as he went and patted Konohamaru's head. I'm guessing you are going to try and tell Sarutobi this then. Udon got a good look at the 3 laughing ninja in front of them and said, they look too young to be Chunin, they're probably just genin pretending to be one. Sasuke nodded, of course. You saw right through us, and now we'll leave. He turned to walk away, and turned back around when he noticed both Naruto and Sakura both staying to entertain the children. We can also stay here for a little bit. He mumbled in annoyance as he walked back to his teammates. Who are you? Konohamaru asked. His eyes widened. Where did you steal the vest from? I want to play too. He asked in rapid session. Naruto laughed and said, hey, no Konohamaru, I didn't steal this vest. You can't get any, and I'm not playing. He got up and stood next to Sakura and Sasuke. He then flung his arms across both of their shoulders. We're all Chunin of Konoha. We can all be considered very advanced students under Kakashi, otherwise known as Sharingan Kakashi. Konohamaru gasped in recognition of the name. You must be powerful. Can you train me? He got in front of Naruto and began to beg, please Naruto-sensei. Udon and Moegi both got in the same position behind Konohamaru and began to chant what he was saying now, please Naruto-sensei. Please Naruto-sensei. Okay. Naruto smiled. The first lesson is to see how far you can run before any of us catch you. Naruto stood up. You have a minute to get out of here before we chase you, and the one that lasts the longest will be considered your team leader. All of their eyes widened and looked at each other. We'll do it, sensei. Konohamaru shouted. Udon and Moegi were only one step behind him in his actions. See you in a couple of hours, Naruto-sensei. They all shouted when they left the immediate area. Sasuke sighed, obvious amused by the children. So, shall we begin our job now? We have to capture the 3 of them first. Naruto spoke up. Then we can begin our job. Has it been a minute yet? He turned to Sakura. Sakura stopped her mental time watch and said, 37 seconds left. Who's going to catch who? I'm going to get Konohamaru. Naruto said determinedly. I'll get the smartest kid on the planet then. Sasuke said. And I'll get the most beautiful woman on the planet. Sakura said as she held in her laugh once more. They waited a little longer before Sakura shouted, now. The 3 of them split from their location, all sprinting to the location they saw their target running. They could easily catch these children, but they figured they'd do this to befriend the children once more in this timeline, for it was a brotherly friendship Naruto and Konohamaru had in the previous timeline. Naruto landed in a tree and his eyes widened at the sight he was seeing. It was a narrow road, and there was a large wooden fence going along the whole right side of the road, and it would eventually lead to the Hokage Tower. Naruto quickly jumped down. A boy stood holding Konohamaru in his hand. He wore a weird-looking black suit with something on his back wrapped up in bandages. He wore purple face paint and looked quite annoyed with the child. The girl next to him had a huge fan on her back and blonde hair that was tied in 4 different places, giving it an odd look. Her blue eyes quickly went from the boy next to her and turned towards Naruto. Konohamaru was struggling to get out of the grip he was held in by the boy in the black suit. Let me go. He turned and noticed Naruto. Naruto. Help me. Put him down now. Naruto ordered. His silliness was now gone for the moment. He's the grandson of the Hokage, and you can get into huge trouble if you do any harm upon him. Kankuro. Kankuro looked up in surprise. How do you know my name, kid? He then noticed the outfit Naruto was in. You're kidding me. You're a Chunin. You're only like 12. Naruto closed his eyes and reopened them. They were now red and his world's view suddenly gained a red hue to it. I am one of them. His eyes narrowed and he showed the fangs he now had in his mouth, and I can be quite deadly. Suddenly two figures appeared behind Sasuke and Sakura stood with their assigned targets in their hands. They noticed how serious Naruto seemed to be at the moment, so Sasuke quickly activated his Sharingan, and Sakura began to gather chakra at her hands just in case. What's going on here? Sasuke asked. The girl next to Kankuro began to say, sorry, my brother can be quite idiotic next time. We don't want to fight you, we're here for the exams. Naruto laughed. Is that so, Temari? Her eyes widened when he said her name. Kankuro dropped Konohamaru who ran to his two friends. Kankuro then was pulling the large item on his back saying, you think you're so tough? I think I'll kick your in. Sand suddenly flew down and circled in an area near them all. Suddenly a red-headed figure appeared there. His eyes had black surrounding them, because of lack of sleep, and he wore a huge gourd on his back. He looked at Kankuro and said, you're an embarrassment to our village. He then faced Naruto and his friends. I apologize for his behavior. He doesn't know when he's outpowered. Kankuro glared at the red-haired child, but ceased to do it when he glared back, much more intense than before. Gaara. I was only playing with their friend. Gaara glare still held. You were being a fool, like always. I don't understand why we need you in this team. Once he turned back to the group of three he focused and felt their chakra signatures. He quickly explored their power and said, these three, they have to be lying. They could be part of the Anbu if they wanted to be. I can feel how strong they are by the amount of chakra they're pushing out, and they don't tire at all from it. So you three who claim to be Chunin are as powerful as Anbu. Wow. That's pretty impressive. Temari said, shock evident in her voice. When she saw Sasuke she blushed slightly and was about to ask him something but Gaara beat her to it. What are your names? He spoke. I like to know the names of my victims. He whispered, only loud enough for Naruto, Sakura and Sasuke to hear it. So he's already got all three of us targeted, Sasuke thought glaring at the boy with his Sharingan still up, Uchiha Sasuke. He spoke. Haruno Sakura. Sakura said the next second, following Sasuke's lead. Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto said, you better not forget it, Shukaku. He whispered the last part so only Gaara could hear it. Needless to say, Gaara's eyes widened considerably. This will be a fun exam after all. He turned around. Temari, Kankuro. We're leaving. A smile formed on Gaara's face, which was usually a sign that something involving him and someone's death was going to happen soon. Both nodded and began to follow Gaara. Gaara. Sasuke shouted, throwing three forms at the boy. Sand suddenly flared up around him and caught them, their entry slips. Sasuke informed. Gaara only gave him a nod and walked off once more. Naruto sighed in relief and turned towards Konohamaru. You okay? Sensei. Konohamaru asked. Naruto looked at him questioningly, but when Konohamaru pointed at his eye, Naruto realized what was wrong. Oh, my eyes. I forgot to change them back. He closed his eyes and his fangs were gone, and his eyes were back to their original sky blue color. That was so cool. Moegi shouted and hugged Naruto's leg. Sensei. You're the best ever. Sasuke deactivated his Sharingan and sighed. Of course, give him all the credit. Sakura likewise powered down the chakra held in her hand. Well, we have a job to do, you three. Sakura called to the three children. We're going to be very busy setting up this exam, so please don't come looking for us once they start. Konohamaru gave her an annoyed look. Who's she? Naruto grinned at him and Konohamaru grinned back. Ah. Is she your girlfriend? How did you ever guess? Naruto said, patting Sakura's shoulder. She's also a very good teammate. Also, he dropped down to the three children and beckoned them all closer. He then whispered, don't piss her off unless if you want an early death. Naruto managed to get all the children off his legs and waved, "See you later, Konohamaru, Moegi, and Udon." Sasuke and Sakura waved too before jumping off in the distance. "Okay, how should we do this?" Naruto asked as they continued to jump on the rooftops. Sakura glanced over and saw a green blur jumping towards the Hokage Tower. Without missing a beat, she sighed. "Looks like Guy's team is going to be in it again." "Why wouldn't they be?" Sasuke asked. "We hardly even interfered with their team." Sakura shook her shoulders. "Well, you did say all that stuff to Neji several weeks ago. It might have changed him, who knows, and you've been training Tenten." Sasuke nodded. "I did that because," he paused, "she means a lot to me now." He could feel a blush as his two teammates gave him a knowing smile. "Should we intercept Guy and tell him to give the slips to us so we may deliver them?" he asked, praying that they'd change the subject. "Nah," Naruto said. "He's so fast that by the time we reach him we'll be in the old Mont's office." Sasuke nodded. "Okay, so where do we go now?" "Head to the front gate and greet everyone that comes in the village," he asked sarcastically, "because, you know, that will be loads of fun. How about we go see the other two genin teams and encourage them to join the exams?" Sakura said with a mischievous smile on her face. Naruto and Sasuke nodded, having nothing against the idea. They all focused on the many threads of chakra within the village. In such a large village, it would be nearly impossible to find the correct chakra signature and manage to follow it to the person's location, but the trio was not weak in any form. Sakura opened her eyes first and pointed in the direction of the training field. "Kurenai's team is over there." And, she pointed in a direction towards several busy buildings. "Asuma's team is in there eating, of course." "Okay," Naruto shouted, obviously excited to see his friends again. "Who are we going to see first? I want to show them my awesome power." Sasuke sighed at Naruto's behavior once more. "If possible, try to keep your power showing to a limit, Naruto. We don't want our possible enemies around the area to know our weaknesses and strengths." Naruto nodded. "Okay, since Asuma is closer, we'll head to him first." "Who died and made you leader of our team?" Naruto asked, glaring at Sasuke, but lifted it a second later. "Kidding, I'm kidding." Sasuke gave him a glance before jumping in the direction of Asuma's team. Sakura and Naruto quickly followed him. Konoha Restaurant District. The trio entered a small building with the smell of barbecue fresh in the air. Naruto wiped the bit of drool that was slowly going down his face. "Okay, so Asuma is over there." He turned his head and felt himself sigh as he watched Choji eat most, if not all of the food right when it was done being grilled in the middle of their table. The three walked forth, and when Asuma noted their presence he asked without glancing at them, "What have I done to bring the Anbu to me?" "We're not Anbu, Asuma-sensei." Sakura spoke up. Asuma quickly turned around after hearing her voice, surprise evident in his expression. "We just wanted to know if you've entered your students for the exams." "Sakura," Ino said, slamming her hands down on the table, "why are you here? Coming to show off that you're a Chunin again?" She looked at Naruto and Sasuke who were standing behind Sakura. Asuma shook his head. "Are you three sure you're only Chunin? This chakra I can feel from you tells me otherwise." He grinned as he saw Sasuke shake his head to the side very slightly so only he noticed it. "So you three are going around giving slips to everyone? I hated it when the old man made me do it." "Yeah, we already learned that it sucks," Naruto said with a grimace on his face, finding all these people is really boring. "It is impressive that you found us though," he noted. "You have never seen us in here, and you managed to feel our chakra from wherever you were. I'm really advanced in that," Sakura admitted. "I can find a lot of people within almost a 5-mile radius. Like I said, I am impressed. You three will certainly advance through the ranks quickly." He then leaned on his hand and looked out the window. Is he getting onto something? Naruto thought. Not letting his facial expressions betray his thoughts, he replied, "Thanks." Choji didn't say a thing, but only glanced at Shikamaru's face, which seemed to be in deep thought, and shook his shoulders. He did say something very brief when his mouth wasn't stuffed with food. "Nice to see you guys." He then went back to eating. Ino couldn't help but stare wide-eyed and mouthed, and Sakura and the other two, who she only a little while ago could have decided she was stronger than Sakura. Why were you chosen to become Chunin and not anyone else? Especially Naruto. He was dead last in class, right? Naruto gave her an annoyed glance, but Sakura answered and said, Kakashi-sensei watched us in the academy and decided we were whom he was going to train. That's all there is to it. Sakura knew it was a weak explanation, but there was really no other card to play. Shikamaru gave her an odd look and went back to his thoughts. So, why was it that you came here? Asuma asked, grabbing some cigarettes from his pouch. We wanted to see if you were entering your students in the Chunin exams. Sasuke explained. Asuma nodded. Now that you mentioned it, that's why I brought my team here. He looked thoughtful and turned to his team. Team, I brought you here to see if you wanted to enter the Chunin exams. I know you all are probably scared to do it, and there is a slight possibility you can die, but I am positive that you all are strong enough to team get past it and become Chunin yourselves. He then took a long drag of his cigarette. I hope that was enthusiastic enough for them. We can die. Ino asked at once. Don't worry. Sakura said, giving her an encouraging smile. We'll be watching the entire exam process. Our job is to make sure the participants don't get too rough. Death is very possible, but it will be at a minimum. Ino looked deep in thought. At this time Shikamaru gave Naruto a questioning glance. Naruto caught it and gave Shikamaru a confused look. Naruto, Shikamaru said, do you think I should enter? Naruto gave him another look. Why yes, Shikamaru. With your intelligence, I am very sure you can become Chunin easily. Shikamaru nodded. Okay, I'm entering Asuma-sensei. Me too. Choji said right afterwards. If both of them are doing it, I can't have myself look bad. Ino said, I will enter as well. Asuma smiled. Great. Now where did I put those damn little slips? Naruto handed him some. Ah, thanks. Sign these. Each of the students grabbed a slip and wrote their required information on it, and handed it back to Asuma, who handed it to Naruto. Can you handle taking them back to Sarutobi? Sure thing. Naruto said, grabbing the slips. I hope you guys do well in the exam. The three of them waved their farewell to the team and exited the building. Sasuke glanced back at the place and said, Shikamaru is definitely suspicious of us. We have got to be careful what we say around him. He seems to know something is off about us. Sakura said. When they were a decent distance away from the place, Sakura said, so, to Kurenai next. Yep. Naruto answered, is she in the same spot? Sakura only focused for 1 second before saying, yep. It is much easier to find the location of a person if you know where to look and what their chakra signature feels like. The three then jumped off to see the other Genin team. Konoha training grounds. So, do you three believe you have what it takes to enter the exams? Kurenai asked as she handed her three students the exam slips. Remember, this is no game. If you fool around, death is a possible price to pay for it. Kiba grabbed the slip and quickly patted all over his body. Damn, do I have anything to write with? A pencil suddenly dropped on his head. Where did this come from? A figure landed right in front of him. Kiba had the decency to scream and land on his butt as the red eyes of the person glared right into his. I want that back when you're done, Kiba. He spoke, and Kiba looked up straight away. Naruto. He shouted. God damn. Don't you ever scare my like that again. Shino looked up. I assume Sasuke and Sakura are with you. Naruto deactivated his eyes and said, yeah, they're behind you. Shino managed to look a little surprised as he turned to see both of them standing behind him. Smiling, what are you up to, Shino? Sakura asked. Entering the exams. He slowly answered back. Hinata, who stood by Kurenai, asked, why are you here, Naruto-kun? Kurenai looked like she wanted to ask the question as well. We're here to see if you're going to enter the exams. Naruto answered. Yeah, we are. Kiba yelled. And we're going to dominate it too, so we'll be up to your level, then we'll surpass you. Naruto laughed. Ha. Thanks for the laugh, Kiba. Kiba sent him a glare, but otherwise stalked over to Shino and looked at his sign-up sheet. So, Hinata-chan. Naruto said, throwing his arm around Hinata. This caused Sakura to give him her trademark death glare and Hinata to blush as red as a tomato. You're going to enter the Chunin exams, right? I'll cheer you and your team on the whole way. Hinata only weakly nodded. He called me Chan. Is there a chance? She glanced up and noticed Sakura and smacked Naruto on the head. Idiot. She muttered under her breath. Hey, what did I do? I was trying to be supportive. Naruto sighed. I did something wrong, didn't I? Sakura nodded. You sure did. Naruto sat on the ground cross-legged and arms crossed as well. What to do? Sasuke watched the scene and sighed. Not again. He smacked his face at what was about to unfold. At least Tenten and I aren't so public about it. He whined within his mind. Sakura-chan, Naruto said, standing up. He wrapped his hands around her waist. I'm sorry. Maybe I could take you out sometimes. Will you pay for the whole meal? She asked, still a hint of anger in her voice. Naruto laughed. What kind of gentleman would I be if I didn't? Sakura twisted around in his grip and gave him a kiss, effectively crushing Hinata's dreams, making Kiba holler and cheer, and Shino doing absolutely nothing. That wasn't as bad as they normally are. Sasuke said, relief echoing in his voice. Okay, you three entering the Chunin exams or what? He said, speaking up so they all could hear him. Kiba shouted, hell yes. And quickly wrote his information down. Shino did so as soon as he got Kiba's pencil and wrote his information down as well. Shino turned to Hinata. Hinata, will you be entering the exam so we all may participate in it? Why yes, she whispered. Her heart had shattered once more at the sight of Naruto and Sakura. She wanted to hate Sakura, but couldn't manage to do so, and she didn't want to break them apart when they seemed so close together. I have to see Shikamaru-kun, she mentally noted to herself. Naruto nodded and took all of their slips. Thanks guys, I know you all will do excellently. Both Sasuke and Sakura nodded, showing their support before they all left with the slips. 3 days later, Ninja Academy. Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke all entered the academy. They all wore their black ninja gear and Chunin vest, for they were going to be watching the students in the first part of the exam. They then wandered into a hall filled with genin, and screaming about entering the appropriate room in front of them. Sasuke only sighed at how they couldn't figure this out. There was a small genjutsu over the sign above the door, making it appear to be the room that they were supposed to enter, when actually it wasn't. If it weren't for Naruto coming back this time around, he would have never learned what was really in there, but it was really only a Chunin waiting room. You guys hardly deserve to even be genin. Naruto yelled to the crowd, a smile on his face. He knew this would piss them off more than anything. Kiba tore through the crowd and got in his face. What's that, Naruto? Naruto quickly gave Kiba a glare worthy of being as scary as Kyuubi, including the red eyes, so Kiba backed down when Naruto released him. I'll just be going now, Kiba said and walked away to his team. The whole crowd was gathered around too, genin who would not let them enter the exam room, and both of them only gave the trio a grin. Ah, it appears some more of the staff is here. You want in? Sasuke nodded. Please. He walked right through the students who all had veins visible in their foreheads. Arg. You Konoha Chunin think you're so cool doing this. A boy jumped towards them. He wore very weird gear, and had bandages wrapped all around his face along with the sound headband on his head. Take this. When he was about to strike the Chunin, he disappeared, as did everyone else in the room. The genin looked around. Genjutsu. He was about to dispel it, but felt a gigantic force against his cheek. The genjutsu cancelled, but Sakura's fist was right in his face, adding her super strength. He was in a world of pain at the moment. Anyone else wants to try taking us? Naruto questioned mockingly. Or, are you all afraid now? He could see Gaara in the back of the room giving him a glare. We better get out of here before Shukaku tells him to murder us all. Have fun all of you. He said as he grabbed Sakura and Sasuke and pulled them into the room the two Chunin were standing in front of. Another sound genin walked up to the one that was just punched by Sakura. Hey, Dosu, I wouldn't recommend picking fights from people of higher skill than you. Shut up, Zaku, he replied, still lying on the ground. Give me a few seconds to get out of this daze. A loud voice suddenly boomed from within the room. Finally, you three are here. Ibiki glared at the three. You children have fun out there. He was the same as the three kids remembered him. He wore a bandana around his head so his scars and such wouldn't show, and wore a huge trench coat. He was tall, and very scary to look at even if he was on their side. Around Ibiki was another batch of Chunin who had entered the room. The place was simply a small waiting room almost, and it looked quite odd with the three children being the only children in there. Sorry, Ibiki. Naruto said. It seems the genin are having a hard time realizing that this isn't the room they're supposed to be in. It's good though, If they can't see past that genjutsu, then they deserve to not be able to enter the exam. Sakura sighed. Sasuke nodded, showing his agreement. So, Orochimaru is coming to this exam as he. Ibiki said. A grin was on his face as he saw the shock on the three children's faces and the other chunin in the room. Hokage-sama is always so full of useful information. The three could have sworn that Ibiki winked at them. Did the old man tell him? Wow. Naruto said unintelligently. So, when are we going to begin the exam? Sasuke asked. Start the exam. We have to go kill Orochimaru. One of the chunin yelled. Many others yelled their agreement. Ibiki glared at him and calmly stated, No. Do you really think the Hokage doesn't already have a team of Anbu on the job already? He again looked towards the three children, giving them the rest of the hints they needed. We'll proceed as planned. If we don't, then it could harm our relations with other villages. He glanced at Sasuke. We'll begin whenever those idiots out there realize that this isn't their exam room. You're kidding, right? Sakura asked. There was a huge horde of them out there that didn't see it. Ibiki sat down in the chair and checked his watch. We've 30 minutes. Make yourselves at home. He motioned to the tables and chairs scattered across the room that they could all wait at. The trio sighed dejectedly and went to sit at one in the far corner. It took only another 20 or so minutes for the noise to quiet down and the door to open, and the two chunin that were guarding walked in inside. One of the moronic kids decided it would be a good idea to yell out that it was a genjutsu so all those no-talent idiots could get into the exams. He sighed. It was fun while it lasted, I'll admit. Ibiki nodded and stood up. Finally. It's almost time for the exam to begin. Sasuke stood up. I'd like to go into the exam room before it begins to see someone important. If Ibiki really knows who we are, he'll definitely have to let us. He and Ibiki stared for several minutes before Ibiki shrugged. Be ready to punish them when I get there. He only stated. Sasuke, Naruto, and Sakura and all quickly disappeared into a swirl of leaves once more. First exam room. Three people just appeared right in the center of a small gathering of genin, all from the Leaf Village. They all jumped back at the disturbance, and only looked up when they saw three people that were almost exactly like them, besides the fact that their skill was much higher, and they wore chunin vest. What are you guys doing here? Kiba asked, obviously annoyed at the interruption. Shouldn't you be preparing to fail us? Naruto smiled at him. Of course not. I wanted to come and say hi to all my good friends who will be taking this exam. Ino latched herself onto Sasuke and squealed, Sasuke-kun. You're finally here to admit your love to me now. No, he said as he worked his way out of his grip. He looked around the room and made eye contact with Tenten, who he smiled at and motioned over. Tenten quickly got her team's attention and made them all come over to the rather large group, speaking. Hey Sasuke, Tenten said, and gave him a hug, making Ino glare at her. Sasuke hugged back, to piss Ino off even more. Hey Ten-chan. You prepared to take the exam? She shrugged. Yeah, I guess. Naruto and Sakura both were just chatting with Shikamaru and Choji when suddenly a green blur knocked all of them but Sakura away. You. Lee shouted in all his glory. His fuzzy eyebrows, tight green jumpsuit and teeth shined with a slight sparkle. I love you. Will you go out with me? He asked Sakura, kneeling down in front of her. If Sakura hadn't known Lee, she probably would have kicked him in the fact and called him a freak, but since he would become a rather powerful ally, she decided to simply say, sorry Lee-san. I'm already taken. Lee looked shocked. The angel knows my name yet claims she has been taken. Tell me, what is your name and the name of the vile one who could possibly take you away from me? Hey, I'm Sakura, she began, but Lee quickly interrupted. Sakura-chan, quite a beautiful name for one such as yourself. He grabbed her hand and kissed it, probably something Guy taught him to do. Sakura quickly wiped her hand on the nearest person, who happened to be Shikamaru, and said, Thanks Lee-san, remember what I said, I already have a boyfriend, so stop going after me. Ah yes. Lee got up, fire burning in his eyes. The vile one. Who is he? Naruto stood next to Shikamaru, who was busy looking at the Lee spit on his clothes and finally sighed and didn't think anything other of it. Choji continued to eat his chips and said, Naruto, shouldn't you go hold Sakura so Lee gets her point? Naruto grinned and said, I would, but Lee's a good guy, I wouldn't want to ruin his fun already. Do you know him? Shikamaru asked, in his thinking pose again, like he was 3 days ago when he learned more information on the trio. Not really. Naruto dragged on, and then said, Tenten just tells me a lot about him, and he sounds really powerful. You have to respect those with power in their hands. Shikamaru nodded. True. Like you. Naruto turned to him. I'm sure you could easily beat me with your intelligence. When Sakura's knuckles began to crack at a rather loud volume, Naruto sighed and saw the vein about to pop on her head from Lee. I better go defuse the Sakura bomb. That would be pretty wise. Shikamaru nodded. See you later, Naruto. Naruto waved at him before he went over to the two. Sakura glanced at him and sighed. Lee-san. She shouted, getting his attention from him ranting. This is my boyfriend. She showed him Naruto. He's Naruto. I think you've heard of him before. No, I haven't. However, I would like to challenge you once this exam is over for the love of Sakura-chan. He struck a good guy pose, in an all-taijutsu fight. Whoever wins gets to continue going out with her like you have been. Naruto looked at him disbelievingly. You acknowledge that I am going out with her, but you still want to fight for her. She's not an object who can simply change who she loves, you know. Lee looked dejectedly. I guess you're right. I always figured that the male should be the taller of the two in the relationship. Lee sighed. What? Naruto shouted. I'm not that short. Maybe a few or so inches, but that's it. You want me to kick your. Sakura, who only sighed at his antics, was holding Naruto back. A figure walked over to the whole group and exclaimed, What the hell are you children doing? This isn't a party. You don't just chat here without thinking someone won't come to kick your. Sakura and Naruto both looked up, hatred filling their eyes. Kabuto. They both thought at the same time. They had to hold themselves at bay before the urge to completely crush him came over both of them. Lee noted a silence from both of them, and focused his attention on the newcomer. Kabuto still was the same as before when the exam first went on in the old timeline. He wore glasses, and the same purple clothes. Naruto almost felt the need to scratch his forehead protector to indicate his true status. Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke all tried to hide their emotions, to limited success. Sasuke fortunately was able to hide everything, while both Sakura and Naruto were glaring at the boy. Kabuto coughed and said, I'm Kabuto. I have done this exam for 3.5 years. It's not a simple walk in the park. He noticed the Chunin vest of Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura. 9. Should know the difficulty of this exam is very high, and you can possibly die in it. Shino and Shikamaru said nothing besides absorb the information. Luckily for you all, I will help you. He pulled out some card, with these information cards. They don't show anything, but when I put my chakra into them it shows the data of every ninja who has entered the exam. Ino looked curious. They show anything about the person? Kabuto nodded. Yep, anything that is recorded about that person is shown. Even things that they can possibly hide and isn't written down anywhere are shown. Neji walked forth from the corner he was hiding in. He only gave Hinata a glance before turning towards Kabuto. Show me all the information you have on Uchiha Sasuke. And Haruno Sakura. Ino shouted. Kiba then added, and Uzumaki Naruto. The trio all said select curse words within their minds. You have their names. Kabuto exclaimed, that will make this much easier then. He placed the cards down on the floor and quickly shuffled until he found the correct one and quickly swiped it away while adding in his chakra. Uchiha Sasuke. Primary elements are fire and lightning. His instructor is Hitaki Kakashi, and his two teammates are Uzumaki Naruto and Haruno Sakura. He's done. Kabuto whistled. No D rank missions, 17 C rank missions, 52 B rank missions, 24 A rank missions, and 2 S rank missions. That's quite a lot of experience you have under your belt, especially for a Chunin. He shook his head at Sasuke. He put the card away. You have to be at least a Junin. He said to Sasuke, care to explain? No, I don't care to explain. Sasuke merely said. Tenten looked at him in wonder. He whispered, maybe later. She only nodded. Kabuto took another card and read, Haruno Sakura, primary element is earth, second one is unknown. Her instructor is Hitaki Kakashi, and teammates are Uzumaki Naruto and Uchiha Sasuke. He glanced at her. Same amount of missions as Sasuke. Side information says she's an expert in genjutsu and medical jutsu, almost enough to rival Tsunade. Wow. Everyone was again silent, and Kabuto quickly traded cards. Last, but not least, Uzumaki Naruto. His primary elements are wind. That's pretty rare, and the second one is unknown. His teacher is Hitaki Kakashi. Teammates are Haruno Sakura and Uchiha Sasuke. His side information says that he knows many of the fourth Hokage's jutsus and is the container for. Sakura quickly snatched the card and crumpled it to tiny pieces before dropping the remains on the floor. You learned enough. She sneered at Kabuto. Is there a problem, Chunin? Kabuto said, a smirk hidden on his face. Sakura was about to turn around to punch him, but Naruto managed to get to her side and calm her out of it. Before any more discussion could go on, a large amount of smoke entered the room, suffocating the children for a little bit. When it cleared, the Leaf group looked around and couldn't see the three Chunin within their group, but when they looked up towards where the cause of the smoke came, they saw Ibiki in the middle of about 20 Chunin, Naruto, Sakura and Sasuke among them. Listen up, brats. Sit down so we can begin this stupid exam. Ibiki called out, to which all the participants all entered different seats scattered about the room. Ibiki began to explain the rules of the exam, which were as followed. You have 10 questions on your exam. If you're caught cheating, you lose 2 points. If you're caught 5 times, you're out, and the 10th question will be said at the last 15 minutes of the exam. Sounds easy enough. Kiba muttered. He glanced at the wall and saw Sasuke next to him, who merely gave him a wave. The Chunin around the room will be watching you to see if you're cheating. Do not get caught. With that said, let the tests begin. Ibiki shouted to the class, and the exam then began. Hinata glanced next to her to see Naruto was right next to her. She couldn't do it often, for it might be misread as cheating by some of the Chunin, so she tried to ignore him. She put her hands together and thought, Byakugan. She noted Naruto smiled and wrote down a note right when she did it. She nearly gasped, but kept it to herself. Ino was not having a good time with this. All these questions are impossible. It's stuff that I'd expect only Sakura to know. She looked around the room and tried to find someone who was writing quickly, but her face fell when she saw next to no one getting anything done. Shikamaru was leaning on his desk, a soft snore coming from him. Choji, who was sitting next to him, only laughed a little at it, and proceeded to eat. The Chunin near those two only sighed at the sight. They couldn't boot them out because they weren't cheating, but they weren't doing anything else either. Hey, the purpose of this test is to cheat. Neji hid his hands and activated his Byakugan and looked around. Most of these people don't even know the answers. It's obvious that only a Chunin or higher would know these questions. So that means that someone must be in here that is writing down the answers to be cheated off of. That's the purpose of the test. Neji kept his head looking down, but had his eyes looked frantically everywhere until he finally spotted one person who had 2 answers down already. Here we go. He began to write down what he was reading on the Genin's paper. The silence in the room was only interrupted by the periodic tapping of pencils as the participants frantically tried to find answers. Many had found out how to do the test, but couldn't figure out the correct method to cheat. It was only a matter of time before people would begin to be booted from the test. Sakura stood from her chair. Numbers 16, 42, and 75, you're disqualified. The said team stood up, and it was obvious that they were pissed as they slammed their chairs in as they proceeded to leave the room, and shot Sakura angry glares, to which she only smiled at, probably aggravating them even more. Numbers 4, 32, and 50, you're disqualified. Naruto said, standing up, walking forth close to Hinata, who was beginning to breath heavily because of how close he was. She would have slapped herself and said, stop it, for she knew he didn't like her, and her admiration of him infuriated Sakura, but she couldn't bring herself to not like him anymore. I'll have to speak to Shikamaru-kun again. She glanced at her paper, and saw that 3 of the 9 questions available were finished right now. I can't think of this right now, I have to do this for my team. Gaara, who had only been sitting with his arms crossed, took this time to focus, and brought 2 fingers up to his forehead and began to materialize an eye out of sand, and out of view of the Chunin. Naruto glanced at him, but knew he couldn't write his name down if he didn't see any physical form of his ability. The sand eye traveled under the desks and came upon one of the Chunin disguised as Genin writing the test. It quickly shot up fast enough to where no one could see it, but left enough of a sand trail to have it get in the mont's eyes. The eye then quickly gathered the information and brought it back to Gaara. I must pass this. Mother wants so badly to meet Mr. Uzumaki. He felt a grin coming to his face, but quickly stopped and began to write down what he saw from his eye. Not yet, mother. Not with all these people watching. Tenten had invisible strings attached to her fingertips and began to move them so she could see the test. She knew that if she looked up, then the Chunin would write her name down, for they'd see the mirror system she had set up for herself and Lee. Okay. Pretend to lean back and relax, only look up for several seconds, and don't let your eyes move too much. She stretched her hands and yawned, leaning back to see the ceiling and the mirror. Okay, time to gather data. She only stayed like that for near 4 seconds before coming back forth. She wrote down several answers and began to rearrange the mirrors so Lee could see them. The signal was for Lee to put on his forehead to protect on his head. This was easy enough, for she was behind Lee. After several seconds he did so, and proceeded to write down the answers. Numbers, 49, 65, and 21, you're all disqualified. Sasuke called out. It was now at a point where a lot of people on his list had 4 strikes, a massacre was about to occur very shortly. Numbers, 2, 48, and 53, you're disqualified. A Chunin shouted. The massacre had begun. After that announcement, the Chunin were taking only about 10-second breaks before another team of participants would be disqualified. It was obvious by Ibiki's sadistic smirk that he was enjoying the events unfolding in front of him. Soon, only about 24 teams were remaining, or in other words 90 students left. You got it, Akamaru? Kiba asked the dog sitting on top of his head, which barked at Kiba, who seemingly understood all the things the dog was saying and writing down all the answers. Shino had used his bugs to get answers, in a similar fashion to Gaara actually. Ino put her hands in front of her and mentally said, Shintenshin no Jutsu. Her body fell on the desk in front of her, and Naruto simply sighed and wrote a strike next to her name, the first one. He knew exactly what she was doing. She entered the body of one of the genin and began to read his answers and grinned, thanks, sucker. She then went back to her body and began to write the answers down. When she got them all that she could remember, she memorized them, and targeted Shikamaru with her technique, and did it once more, to which Naruto marked her twice. Ino glanced at Shikamaru's paper, and was surprised to see it was all filled out. She checked her clothes and hands to make sure she landed in the right body. What the hell? Shikamaru knew all of this. She shook it off. Why am I bothering to stay in here? She cancelled the jutsu and traveled back to her own body. Shikamaru glanced at her and gave her a look. I was only trying to help you, fool. She wanted to shout at him, but simply turned her sights to Choji. Here we go. Naruto got nervous as he wrote Ino's name down a 3rd time. Ino inside of Choji's body noted his empty paper, and quickly got to work on writing down the answers for him. She knew he probably didn't like how it felt with her being in control of his conscience, but he'd appreciate it eventually. Once she wrote down what she remembered, which was only 3 questions, she transferred back to her body. Naruto sighed in relief as she finally put her head down and stayed still. Kankuro raised his hand, to Ibiki's annoyance, and asked, Can I head to the bathroom for a moment? I need to. Fine. Ibiki called out. I don't need to hear the details of it. Take a Chunin with you. Kankuro nodded and a suspicious-looking Chunin went out with him. After a few minutes, he came out and tossed a piece of paper to Temari, which Sasuke quickly wrote down as cheating, a strike for Kankuro and Temari. The rest of the exam went well, with more teams getting out, until there were only 26 teams left. Okay, brats. Ibiki called out, it's time for the final question. Before I give it out, however, I'm going to change some rules. Various cries came out from the participants, to which Ibiki quieted down with a silence. Everyone shut up after that. He looked around and continued, now, if you take the 10th question and fail it, you'll forever stay a genin for the rest of your ninja career. Multiple cries occurred, music to Ibiki's ears. If you pass it, you will continue the Chunin exams. That's not fair. Some people in here have taken this exam more than once. Kiba shouted. Well, they were lucky to not have me as their first exam instructor. He smirked sadistically. Now, those of you who want to quit, say so now so you can run like the cowards you are. It was silent at first, But suddenly a hand raised. A genin called out, "Sorry team, but I don't want to risk it." He was quickly called out as the rest of his team, who didn't look very mad themselves, and looked a little relieved. That, however, broke the ice. Many teams began to quit, and by the time Naruto stood up and yelled at Ibiki in the previous timeline, over half the teams were gone from what there once were. Now, only 13 remained. "You all are sure you wish to continue with this?" Ibiki asked. "It could risk your whole career." Hinata was terrified. She glanced at Naruto, who gave off no emotion at the moment, probably part of his job, so he was of no support. "Should I quit? What would father think of me if I were to stay a genin for the rest of my life?" Neji's eyes widened as he noticed Hinata's hand slowly rise. "She isn't going to, is she?" When she was about to call out, Neji stood up and slammed his hand down on the desk, quite out of his character. "We are all strong enough to continue. I could see all of these people's chakra signatures, and I can feel that they're prepared to continue on to the next part." He gave Hinata a glance and sat down. "What the?" Naruto was shocked. He didn't expect anyone to do something he had done in the past, but if someone had to do it, he expected Kiba or someone, not Neji of all the people in his mind. "I thought he was still an asshole right now." Hinata looked at her cousin, with probably more shock and surprise than Naruto did. She knew he hated her, so why would he have cared if she quit? "Neji," she thought, "why?" "So," Ibiki smirked, "it seems your words have had a positive effect on the rest in here." Ibiki grinned. "Does anyone else wish to quit?" Silence answer him. "Then I am proud to say that you 13 teams have passed the exam." Everyone looked shocked at that, besides the Chunin, of course. "You all were excellent. You managed to avoid the eye of some of the most skilled Chunin in the village. The point of this exam were to see how well you information gathering skill were. If you were horrible, it cost you team dearly, like on any real mission." Ibiki said, "Information is worth more than anything on the battlefield. If you're caught, you mustn't crumble under your enemy's grip like a coward. You have to hold your own." He then began to take off his bandana. Naruto's eyes widened, and he turned his head away from the sickening image that was about to be revealed. "I don't need that to be in my nightmares again." He heard everyone gasp in terror. Sasuke and Sakura did something very similar to him, as did every other Chunin. This is how you must defend information. Even if it costs you your life, you must retain it from the enemy. Ibiki sighed. "That's it. I hope you all proceed to do well in the exam." And, suddenly a loud crash occurred, and the window next to Ibiki shattered and a large poster was put up with kunai saying, "Mitarashi Anko." A woman flew in afterwards and exclaimed, "Hello children. I'm your second exam proctor. Mitarashi Anko." Everyone sighed, for they already read it on the poster behind her. "Now, follow me." She counted the numbers and smirked. "Nice work, Ibiki. I did my best." He smirked. "A lot of them were cowards. You have only the toughest ones left to play with." Ibiki walked away. "Good luck, brats, you'll need it." Anko began to walk out with the group of genin behind her. "You all will come with me. You'll have an hour break before the next part of the exams, so you might want to go say goodbye to all those you love. You may never see them again." She grinned. "She's worse than Ibiki," Sakura thought, a look of disgust crossing her face. Hinata caught up to Neji and quietly asked, "And Neji, why did you do that for me? You're the clan head. You must never falter under fear or anything within your path. As a branch member, it is my job to make sure you take the right path." Neji simply said and walked onward. Hinata nodded, and the rest of the genin were out of the place. The Chunin began to go out as well after all the genin were gone as well, leaving only 3 Chunin left. Naruto and Sasuke walked over to Sakura. "That was fun." Naruto said, "So, what do you guys want to do for an hour before we need to go watch the kiddies fight it out in the forest of death?" Sasuke grabbed a kunai. "I know of a certain snake I want to meet." "Don't we all?" Ibiki called from the front of the room. "Don't you guys have jobs as proctors for the next part of the exam?" Sakura smiled. "I guess Hokage-sama told you of us." "He did. You think I really wanted 12-year-olds running the show here?" He looked rather annoyed. "Now, before you brats leave, help me pick up these papers at least." The trio sighed and did as they were asked. Within the forest of death, Kabuto traveled deep within the forest and looked around. Once he was sure no one had followed him, he continued his journey into the forest. He jumped into a small clearing, and called out, "I'm here, master." From one of the trees, a man materialized himself and walked forth. "So, Kabuto, what information do you have on their status?" "They definitely trained a lot. They're going to be quite a match for both of us. If all three of them fight me, I know I'd die. You may make it out alive, with plenty of scratches though." Orochimaru lashed and held Kabuto by his throat. "You made us come back far too late. You foolish boy. I should kill you right now." "Orochimaru-sama." Kabuto wheezed out. "They don't know that we're be back yet." Orochimaru released Kabuto. Orochimaru walked out. "For your sake, Kabuto, I hope you're right. I'm guessing the three of them warned the Hokage that we'd be here. The whole village is filled with rumors of you being here. It's not safe to go with our original plan." Kabuto said. "They'll come and kill us. They probably have Anbu looking for us right now." Orochimaru shook his head. "No. We've set too much into motion now for us to stop." "Orochimaru-sama." Kabuto looked surprised. "So we're going to proceed as planned?" He nodded. "I will attempt to give Sasuke the cursed mark again, and if I succeed, I can modify its power to make him work for us again. Sarutobi-sensei is alive and well, and I simply can't have that." "Orochimaru-sama." Another person came into the clearing. "Kimimaro is back at the Sound Village in the room you requested." "Thanks, Sakin." Orochimaru grinned. "With our new knowledge of his disease, we can possibly remove it. He was quite the useful asset to our forces last time." Kabuto nodded. "Indeed he was." Orochimaru stretched his arm out. "Go now. And proceed with your duties." The remaining people jumped out of the clearing. "Okay, children." Anko called out. All the children had the time to go do whatever they wanted. If it was to see their parents or train some more, they were all definitely determined to head in and begin the second part of the exam. "I hope you're all ready. It's a good day to die." She smiled evilly. Almost everyone shuddered at her words. "Now, because we can't have other nations hating us if their little genins die, you need to sign these waivers saying that you understand that you can die in this place." Anko lifted up a sheet of paper. "Now, all you line up so you can get one of these." The children all obeyed and got in a line to grab their paper. Kiba, who was in front of the other two members of his team, exclaimed, "I can wait to do this. We'll kick the others' team's asses." "Kiba-kun, maybe you shouldn't say that," Hinata nervously asked, looking around at all the faces glaring at the dog-like child. Shino nodded. "Kiba, you're probably not stupid enough to realize that all these teams are our competition, and if we provoke them, we may have to fight more than necessary." He pushed up his sunglasses and added, "We'd have too many extra scrolls." The other teams lessened their glares, fearing what Shino could do, and looked forward to getting their waivers and entering the forest. "I wonder where Sasuke-kun's team is," Ino muttered, looking around in the same line as Kiba and his team. "I wonder if he'll have any part of the second part of the exam." Shikamaru shook his head. "Who cares? I'm sure they know what they're doing." "You know more than you're letting on," Ino accused him. "Tell me." She grabbed Shikamaru's collar and began to strangle him. Choji glanced over at the two and shook his head. He was used to his team's antics by now. Over by the outskirts of the forest was Team Guy, who were all looking confident. Well, Lee had a complicated look on his face, probably thinking of Sakura, and Neji and Tenten were both preparing their equipment, making sure that they were completely prepared. Tenten looked over to her two teammates and asked, "You two ready to do this?" "Of course," Neji nodded. "Most of these people aren't even worthy of being here." "That's not what it seemed like when we were in the exam room," Tenten noted. "You said something like, 'We're all good enough for this.'" Neji looked troubled. "So I did. I hope the angel Sakura-chan is here to see my awesome skills and see that I am much more worthy than the Uzumaki boy. If I fail in that, I will run around the village 500 times and afterwards I will send her 1,000 cards to show my apology." Fire burned in Lee's eyes during the whole speech. Tenten looked annoyed and said, "Lee, you do know that Sakura kind of loves Naruto a lot, and the chances of you actually getting her to go out with you are 1 in a billion." As if on cue, 3 figures dropped from the trees above the team. "Sorry I'm a little late, Ten-chan," Sasuke said as he landed next to her. "Ibiki can be evil once in a while," Sasuke said, rubbing the back of his head. Lee took one look at Sakura before trying to hug her once more. "Sakura-chan. Please, be with me." He nearly reached her until she was pulled out of his path. Naruto held her in his hands, and gave Sakura a large kiss on the lips. She noted what he was doing, and gave in easily without much of a fight at all. No. Lee fell to the ground. Why must fate do this to me? Naruto grinned as he got back from Sakura. Don't worry, Lee, you're a good person. I'm sure someone will eventually see the good in you. Neji, who had been quiet for the whole time, finally decided to speak up. Sasuke. From your records in the exam room Kabuto gave us, you are not Chunin. What is going on? Oh yeah. Tenten looked Sasuke into the eyes. Are you going to explain all that stuff Kabuto said in the exam room? Sasuke looked around. Listen, I can't tell you everything, but let's just say that Naruto, Sakura, and I have been trained for years now by a Kakashi. After observing us in the academy, he picked us out to be work under him. Why did he choose you three? She asked. Why do they always ask this? Sasuke thought, but quickly shook his head back to her. Well, Ten-chan, I don't know. I guess since I'm an Uchiha and he has Sharingan, he figured he could teach me. What about Naruto and Sakura-chan? Lee asked, getting interested with the topic as well. We're all not sure. Naruto said. I mean, who really cares? What has happened has happened. No use trying to make sense of it all. He shook his head at Sasuke, letting the boy know he had his back, to which Sasuke smiled at. Tenten nodded. Okay, well. Bye Sasuke, we have to get ready. Naruto and Sakura both quickly got behind Sasuke and did a small demonstration. Naruto stood in front of her and quickly grabbed her by the waist and pulled her towards him and looked lost in her eyes for a moment before getting into yet another deep kiss between the two of them. I see. Sasuke nodding. Take notes of the technique. Tenten glanced at him. What? Sasuke then walked forward and grabbed her by the waist and pulled her towards him. She looked surprised, but he continued the tactic anyways. Then, once there was no space between them, Sasuke looked deep into her eyes and said, Please be safe, Ten-chan. He then proceeded to kiss her, to which she quickly gave into. He's good. Naruto mumbled. Exceptionally good. Lee shouted, writing down his technique in a notepad he suddenly got out of nowhere. I will use your comrade's move on some woman that will one day become my wife. Sakura giggled at his antics. She hadn't seen Lee for so long and it was definitely refreshing to see him act like this once again. Unfortunately for her, Lee took this the wrong way. Sakura-chan. Did I make you laugh? He smiled. Does that mean you chose me instead of Uzumaki? Sorry Lee, Sakura said, and turned back to Naruto. I'm still with the Uzumaki. She replied and gave him a small kiss. Naruto shook his head. You know, I could definitely get used to having Lee around if it will result in this much kissing. Before any more conversation could be had, Anko yelled out, Okay brats. The test is about to begin shortly, so get over here so I can tell you what to do. The teams all walked over, prepared to listen to what she had to say. Alright, do all of you have a scroll? There is the Heaven and Earth scroll. To pass the second exam, you must get each scroll and make it to the center of the forest within 5 days. Any later and you lose. Killing is allowed, and will be enjoyed actually. She laughed evilly, making the students around her move a few paces away from her. Also, do not open the scrolls at all, or you'll be in for a nasty surprise. Sasuke counted the amount of teams around. Only 13, he muttered. Only 6 teams can pass this part. So that means 9 fights if no one disqualifies themselves and if all 6 of the possible teams make it to the building. Sakura and Naruto both absorbed his information and nodded. Remember our mission guys? Sakura whispered, to which both Naruto and Sasuke nodded. Anko gave them a suspicious look before shrugging it off and giving off the rest of the directions. After 5 more minutes she had Chunin around the place to escort the teams to where they would enter the forest. Here we go, Naruto said, walking towards the rather large gate holding all the beast and things from the forest in front of him. Before they entered, Sasuke began to speak. If any of you see Orochimaru, flare you chakra, and as much of it as you can possibly get. We'll all need to work together to bring him down, and the huge chakra spike will probably scare off all the genin in the forest and alert Anbu to our presence. Got it, Naruto said. Before we go, Sakura said, don't do anything stupid if you find him. Go on defensive if you have to engage in combat with him, and do not let him give you the curse seal again. The last part was obviously directed at Sasuke. He looked down. Of course, he won't give me that damn thing again. I'll rip his head right off before I have to suffer through that again. Good to hear, Naruto said. A smile was evident on his face. Okay, we'll head in and be far up in the trees. To be safe and so no genin will see us, Sakura will use a genjutsu to make us almost invisible to the eye, and afterwards we'll split up once we're a decent way into the forest. Sasuke looked up. You guy ready? The gates rumbled slightly from all the doors opening, and a siren went off, alerting everyone that the second part of the exam had officially begun. The three looked at each other and nodded. Sakura quickly did some hand seals and concealed them all before they jumped off into the forest, prepared to fight Orochimaru. Forest of Death. Once the three Anbu were a kilometer into the forest, they split their group. Sakura dropped the genjutsu, for she couldn't use it from very long distances, and it would be much easier to conceal themselves without two others with them. Before they left, Naruto shouted out, "Good luck you guys." Sakura and Sasuke didn't yell back, and gave Naruto an annoyed look, who only returned it with a wide smile of his own. Down on the ground Kiba looked and sniffed. Did you guys hear something? No, Shino said bluntly, you're just hearing things. Don't make too much noise, there may be other teams within this area, and we could be killed. I've spotted someone, Hinata cried out, completely ignoring Shino's warning. He has a really powerful chakra though, she said, examining the body some more, it almost looks bronze. Kiba looked thoughtful. Bronze chakra. Well, that's different than usual. Shall we investigate it then? Shino asked. Why not? We can possibly steal his scroll and, Kiba was interrupted. He's engaging another person in combat. We could possibly get 2 scrolls. She looked at them questioningly. Kiba shrugged. Why not? Let's go guys. He allowed Hinata to run forth, leading them through as he and Shino followed her to the fight that was about to unfold. Deeper in the forest of death. Sasuke landed on another tree branch and looked around. It was almost pitch black where he was, the trees above his head hid most of the sunlight from reaching the forest floor. He could hear many large creatures below him. It was nothing he couldn't handle however. Sasuke-kun, so nice of you to join me. Orochimaru's voice seemed to flow with the wind that was beginning to pick up. Sasuke grabbed a kunai from his pouch, and activated his Sharingan. Come out you coward, and fight like a real man. He put his hands together in a basic seal and flared his chakra like the plan said. Once the signal was out he looked around to see where Orochimaru was. It will take the other two about 7, maybe 8 minutes to reach me. If he doesn't attack this will be very simple. Unfortunately, nothing simple ever occurs with Sasuke, as the tree branch he was standing on suddenly exploded into hundreds of small splinters. He looked down at the darkness below him with his Sharingan activated. He could see the man he had wanted to kill for so long. Orochimaru, I'm going to kill you. So I've heard. He chuckled slightly. I see that you have been training quite a bit since you have come back. You shouldn't have stabbed me and used that jutsu boy. Orochimaru glared at him, his yellow eyes the only thing that glowed within the darkness. It seems that I will have to teach you a lesson in respect once more. Sasuke looked utterly surprised. His mouth fell open, and he looked on in open shock. You're back. He shouted. I stabbed you with Kusanagi. How did you come back in time, or even get enough chakra to do it? The men who willingly served my village sufficed, even then they did not have nearly enough chakra as Kyuubi did to send me back as far as you went. He said, Sasuke, I really didn't like the wound you gave me as a farewell gift, it was quite painful, one useful thing did come of it. He grabbed the blade from his belt, the blade you had is now mine once again. I think I'll stab you once, maybe twice, but oh, I can't do that can't I, you might die. But if it lures the Kyuubi here, I might as well do it. What do you want with Naruto? He'll become my new container of course. Orochimaru laughed. I have been toying with the idea for a long time in the other timeline, but now that I am here, and you have proven yourself far too dangerous to me, I decided I am going to kill you instead, and take the Kyuubi for myself. You'll die, Sasuke said. If you even attempt to take him, the demon would rip you apart. He shrugged. Maybe, but the demon is far more powerful than even your eyes. I will do anything to gain ultimate power. You're not getting him as your container Orochimaru. Your life ends today. Sasuke made several hand seals before blowing a large fireball out of his mouth at the person in front of him. Orochimaru simply melted away, it was only a clone made of mud. Sasuke heard movement behind him, so he quickly jumped away, knowing that no kunai would be able to hold off the sword Orochimaru was using. The ground Sasuke was standing on mere seconds ago suddenly exploded, making dirt and dust flow everywhere. My, Sasuke, you've certainly improved since the last time we met in this forest. I can recall that you were terrified to fight me, now it seems you're eager. How times have changed. Orochimaru laughed as he charged at Sasuke once more. Sasuke barely dodged the side, he could tell that he wasn't even a match for Orochimaru, and could only hold him off for at most, maybe 20 minutes at most if he didn't get help soon. Luckily he knew his friends would be there to help him. Pay attention boy. Orochimaru screamed as he swept the ground Sasuke stood on. Sasuke flipped over it, and ran back a bit so he could see Orochimaru in front him. He put his hand down and had his other hold onto it, and an electric charge began to form. I can use this technique about 10 times before I can't use it anymore. I can't be reckless, 2 misses are okay, but any more will be a waste of my stamina. The electricity began to make a chirping sound, and a large blue hue emitted the area. You're going to die Orochimaru. Sasuke shouted as he raised his hand and began to run forward at the man who seemed to just stand there and smirk at his charge. Cheeto. Sasuke suddenly was slashed across the back, as the Orochimaru in front of him suddenly melted into mud, and the one behind him had a huge grin on his face. Sasuke suddenly disappeared and a log split in two was in front of Orochimaru. I figured I couldn't take you out so easily. Orochimaru sighed. He looked up to where Sasuke was on the side of a tree. He threw several shuriken and ran at the snake bastard. He got right up to the man and continued to dodge the sword while he began to do a series of hand seals. When he was completed, he dodged the sword once more and brought his hand to his mouth and shouted, Kaden. Gukaku no Jutsu. The huge fireball that blew Orochimaru back made him explode into a huge amount of smoke. You're going to have to do better than that. Orochimaru exclaimed as he came down from the trees. He slashed again, which Sasuke yet again dodged, but suddenly he shot snakes from his sleeves and managed to grip Sasuke, and began to drag him forth. Sasuke struggled with the grip the snakes had on both of his arms. It made it impossible for him to get his hands together to do seals, and he couldn't move his feet at all. Shit. What am I going to do? He thought in panic. You know, I was debating whether or not to give this to you, but now that you're in my grasp, without much of a struggle at all, I think I'll give you my curse mark and make you suffer before you die. He chuckled as Sasuke looked at him with panic. Orochimaru extended his head like a real snake once more towards Sasuke, who was reliving the moment from before over again. What to do? He figured something out and smirked. Orochimaru saw it too late, and right when he was about to bite the child, electricity came from all over the body, destroyed the snakes holding the boy, and burning his face, making him retract back to his own body. Gah! What the hell is that? He shouted in anger, holding his face in his hands. You don't remember? Sasuke asked, getting off the ground. Something I learned while I was with you, a chidori that can cover my entire body. Orochimaru glanced up, and simply tore off the skin of his face, replacing it with a new coating. Of course, how could I forget that? He looked Sasuke in the eye and said, well, child, I can't imagine what I'll do to you now once I exhaust your chakra. Sasuke glared at Orochimaru and said, doubt you have long enough. He then went on to the offensive as Orochimaru jumped back onto a branch of a tree. Kaden. Hausenka no Jutsu. Sasuke shouted, making sure to keep Orochimaru on the run. The multiple fireballs all landed mere centimeters behind Orochimaru as he ran forth, avoiding all of the flames. When he dodged them all, he landed on the ground and looked quite annoyed. Orochimaru got up and sighed, okay brat, now you die. He jumped at Sasuke and slashed his blade at him several times, but suddenly stopped when he heard a familiar voice coming from above. Naruto came down doing a series of hand seals, making a gust of wind formed around Orochimaru and began to slice him all over. Orochimaru surged his chakra to destroy the technique Naruto had used on him. So it seems your friends have come to assist you now boy. But where is the other one? Orochimaru looked all around. Suddenly a rumble was felt under him, and as he jumped away the ground he was standing on suddenly was lifted, familiar with Doden jutsus. Sakura asked as she threw the huge amount of dirt she was holding together with her chakra. It exploded and created a huge cloud of dust and dirt around the area, concealing everyone. Well, now we can't see him. This can't be good. Naruto muttered as he and Sasuke stood next to each other. He held Sasuke's sleeve to make sure they wouldn't get separated. Don't worry, Sakura said, appearing next to them. I have my chakra in each bit of dirt in the air. Right now we have the advantage. She whispered to them, Orochimaru is coming at us from the left. Orochimaru was expecting to slash right through Sakura, but was surprised when she grabbed the blade of the chakra on her hand, separating it from cutting her, and punched him as hard as she could in the gut, knocking him in the trees again. You're just as annoying as Tsunade. He muttered as he got up once more. Note to self. Ask Sakura how she does the chakra technique with dirt. Naruto thought to himself until Orochimaru's laugh cut his chain of thoughts off. Ha! You three children think you can actually kill me. He flew through a set of hand seals and began to shout, I hope you all are prepared to fight my legion of snakes. Right when he was about to finish the summoning jutsu, a large wall of sand appeared behind him and engulfed him, causing him to stop the technique he was about to finish. No one, Gaara muttered, no one will kill the ones I am going to kill. He stood on the forest floor, all his sand covering Orochimaru. Temari and Kankuro both looked afraid as they saw the three people, and the one who thought they could take the trio. Temari looked on, and said, Gaara, we really shouldn't interfere with their fight. Don't tell me what to do, or I'll kill you. He said without even looking at her. He continued to look up at the mass of sand and shouted, Sabaku Susu. The sand around Orochimaru exploded and smoke covered the area where blood should have rained down. Gaara looked more amused than anything else. Sakura looked afraid, not for herself, but amazingly for Gaara, Cage. She shook her head. Gaara. He's way above your league right now. Run away. Did she just say Cage? Kankuro said, disregarding her warning. I think so. Both of them looked at Gaara. They couldn't even imagine the murderer of a brother they had could ever attain such a position. Gaara ignored his relatives and said, You think I am incapable of protecting myself? He looked around for the man he thought he had crushed. Now where is he? His sand came back down to him, and slowly circled around him, protecting him from anything that could harm him. Orochimaru suddenly appeared behind him and stabbed right through the barrier of sand that came up and through the armor of sand Gaara wore. Gaara! Temari shouted, surprised that anything like that could even happen to him. Gaara's eyes were wide as Orochimaru pulled the blade out of him. He slowly raised his arm up to the wound in his chest and rubbed the blood pouring out of it. Wah, what is this? He suddenly felt the pain kick in, and fell on his knees. His scream echoed throughout the forest. Gaara! Naruto tried to run down to him, but Orochimaru got into his way. I don't think so, boy. You're going to either fight me, or let the kid die. Orochimaru grinned as Naruto's eyes flared a deep red hue. His professional stance was now gone. I'm going to kill you. Naruto slashed his now formed claws at the man and missed. Stop running, you coward. He chased Orochimaru through the forest. Sasuke knew exactly what Orochimaru was planning and shouted, Naruto. He's leading you away. He can take us one-on-one, but if we work together we can beat him. Naruto didn't even heed his warning. Shit. Sakura. Heal Gaara. I'm going to help Naruto. Sakura looked angered. What? Why do I have to stay back and do this? I want to help too. You can't. Sasuke grabbed her shoulders, near shaking her. Gaara is too important for this timeline. If Orochimaru manages to screw this up, you know what can happen. Sakura looked down. You're right. She looked worried. Make sure Naruto doesn't do anything stupid, okay? Sasuke smiled and said, it's a promise. He jumped off following Naruto's trail. You better keep that one. She muttered. She looked down at the three below her. Gaara had fallen into unconsciousness, and surprisingly the demon wasn't taking over, probably because of the poison in his blade. Temari in near tears as she tried to wrap the wound in bandages, but the wounded area was looking worse after each second. Kankuro was simply shocked that Gaara was taken down so easily. Sakura jumped down to the ground where the three were and said, okay, I'm a medical ninja, let me heal him. She tried to push past Temari, but she stood her ground. You're just going to hurt him. He's in the worst state ever. I would imagine father told you to kill him right now and. Tamari was going to continue, but Sakura burst out in anger saying. Let me see him. He's too damn important to die now. Besides, your father is dead now anyway. She shoved Tamari away with her strength and got on her knees on Gaara's side, who was lying down now with his hands on his side. His sand was scattered all around the place, probably unable to work without the conscience of whoever controlled the body. Sakura quickly got a string from her kunai pouch and tied her hair back. Afterwards she breathed in and out really quickly before putting both her hands over the wound. It appears that the poison has spread to his lungs, stopping his breathing. This is a very powerful poison. You're lucky I'm here. Thank you, Tamari muttered, unsure of what to do in front of the girl. She says father is dead. Konkuro finally got out of his shock and asked, is he going to be fine? We're in the middle of the exam here, he muttered, trying to act like he didn't care much for his brother's injury. I need to get this poison out of him, and I don't have the proper equipment to do it with. I can't take him out because apparently you guys can't manage to live without entering the next stage of these damn exams. Stop asking me questions and I'll see what I can do, so shut up. Sakura exclaimed, glaring at him. He backed off, knowing the anger of a woman too well. Sakura got her canteen and poured water over her hand, formed a bubble with it with her chakra and poured her chakra into it to make it into a green-colored one. She put it on the wound to clean up the dirt and poison remaining on the outside of it, and proceeded to go on to where his lungs were located and began to clean them out of poison. Gaara had no reaction. To any normal human this would be incredibly painful. Naruto, Sasuke, please be all right, she thought as she continued to work on the fallen boy. Near the edge of the forest of death, Naruto slashed at Orochimaru once more, and yet again missed, only destroying the branch the snake bastard stood on only minutes before. Why do you keep running? He wasn't near angry enough to lose control and have chakra tails form behind him, but he was definitely considering it. Sasuke. Sakura. He turned to look behind him and noticed that they were long gone from where they originally were. You fell for my trap rather easily, Naruto. Orochimaru said with a large grin on his face, you're so easy to mess around with, and now with your friends gone I am going to beat you down until I can make you my vessel. Naruto glared. His red eyes almost seemed to go a deeper shade of red. No way in hell am I going to become your vessel. Of course not, Naruto-kun, he said, I think we're far enough. Your two friends are probably busy working on that Gaara child right now. What a pain that child was in the previous timeline, maybe I should have killed him. He looked thoughtful, only managing to piss Naruto off even more. No. He shook his head. Don't give in to Kyuubi's chakra. Naruto took a deep breath and calmed down to the point where the demonic aura surrounding him went away. A smile appeared on his face, completely confusing Orochimaru. Sakura-chan is a very powerful medical ninja. I don't need to worry about Gaara, and I believe Sasuke should be coming soon. Now you need to worry about yourself, boy. Orochimaru said as he advanced towards him. Even with Kyuubi at your disposal, I will defeat you. Suddenly 3 kunai with explosive notes stabbed the ground at Orochimaru's feet, and exploded before he could even react to them. Naruto looked surprised, and looked over to where the kunai had come from. Kakashi. Naruto shouted in shock, took you long enough. I am sorry, Naruto. Kakashi said, we had to assemble the Anbu, and the Hokage will be coming shortly. We plan to exterminate him right now. Orochimaru looked annoyed. Damn it. Sharingan Kakashi. Just the person I wanted to see. He said with sarcasm dripping from his voice. I'm touched. Really. Naruto. Kakashi. Sasuke jumped on Naruto's left side, and smirked. You're an idiot sometimes, Naruto, running off like that. Naruto feigned sadness. Ah, Sasuke, you're going to make me cry now. Orochimaru only smiled at their actions. I will defeat you all before the Anbu arrive, then I will take Naruto for myself. He began to fly through hand seals once more. When he managed to complete them he bit his thumb and shouted, Kuchio's no jutsu. Naruto and Sasuke both tensed up when smoke filled the area. The hissing of snakes is what answered the 3 standing there, and as soon as the smoke cleared, Orochimaru was standing amongst at least 10 gigantic snakes. Orochimaru laughed at the expression on their faces. Now you will all die. He pointed at them. Kill them, my minions, but spare the one with the blonde hair. The snakes didn't wait another second and charged forward. However, they all disappeared before the snakes made contact. Orochimaru looked around, annoyed that he lost them so quickly. Rasengan. Naruto fell from above as he attempted to hit Orochimaru off the snake's head he was standing on in an attempt to kill him, but unfortunately, Orochimaru grabbed his wrist, canceling the jutsu out. Naruto-kun, you're going to have to move faster than that. He smiled. You want that seal back that I gave you here in the past? I wouldn't mind. His fingertips began to glow with chakra. Come now, don't be afraid. He thrust his fingers into the chest of Naruto, who suddenly blew up into smoke. Orochimaru was slightly annoyed, but shook it off. He then heard a shout of, Chidori. Sasuke charged at him from behind with another electrical ball of power in his hand. He threw his hand forth to hit Orochimaru, who managed to dodge most of the attack, growled. Minions. Kill them. He shouted, and watched the snakes go forward, attempting to crush the two boys and Kakashi. As the snakes moved, they destroyed a lot of smaller trees in the forest as they attempted to zigzag around the forest after the ninja. Kakashi and Sasuke got together, and both made a Chidori of their own. A snake attempted to take them out, but when it charged at them, they were able to evade its bite and sent their attack into its eyes, sending it back to where it came from. Naruto meanwhile was being chased by the largest of the snakes, and it actually managed to capture him in his mouth, but Naruto held it open, but was quickly being overpowered by the snake. Right when it was about to swallow Naruto, Orochimaru screamed, No! Don't kill that one. I need him as my vessel. The snake gave Orochimaru a very angry look, but otherwise ignored Naruto. It turned its attention away from Naruto, a big mistake. Naruto grinned and jumped on the snake's head. He still had his kunai in hand and slowly climbed up the snake, which began to thrash violently around to get Naruto off of him. Unfortunately for the snake, Naruto managed to take it out, sending it back in a large explosion of smoke. Are you all right, Naruto? Kakashi asked. Yeah, fine. He coughed. I wish summons didn't turn to smoke when they go away though. Orochimaru was annoyed and about to go attack Kakashi, but at that moment Sasuke appeared right in front of him. I believe we have a fight to settle. He said, getting into his fighting stance. You're using the stance I taught you against me. He grinned. I'm glad something I taught you was of some use. I use whatever will help me achieve my goals best. Sasuke said. Now fight me. Orochimaru laughed a little and said, Sorry, but I would much rather go after your dear little friend. He suddenly melted away into a mud puddle. Naruto. Sasuke turned around and saw Naruto fighting the snakes along with Kakashi, both of them holding their ground. Unfortunately, due to all that, Naruto was unable to hear Sasuke's warnings. Damn it! Sasuke cursed, and made his way over to him. Back to Gaara. Temari and Kankuro were still standing back, not wanting to get in Sakura's way at all. Finally, after what seemed like so long, Sakura let out a long sigh and leaned back on her hands. Okay, he's stable. He'll be alright. Give him a few days to rest and he'll be ready for the rest of the exams. Are you sure? Temari asked, worry seeping into her voice. Of course I am. Sakura gave them a reassuring smile. Her face then got serious as she looked off to where Naruto and Sasuke went off to. I need to go help the rest of my team. You three go on, okay. Right before she left, she heard coughing from behind her and heard, Haruno, I am going to kill you. Gaara barely had his eyes open as he looked at the girl about to run off. You're welcome, she said through gritted teeth. She had forgotten how completely rude and unkind Gaara was when he was a 12-year-old kid. You're lucky you have Shukaku within you, otherwise you'd have to drop out of the exam. Gaara had an evil grin on his face. Hey, I think I may rest now. Mother is busy fixing me up. He let his head hit the ground. I'll owe you one favor before you die, Haruno. Fair enough. She sighed. Well, Gaara, I have to go now. Please don't get into too much trouble. With that, she turned away and jumped off after her teammates. Why do you think she treats Gaara so nicely? Doesn't he want to kill her? Kankuro asked questioningly towards his sister. A confused look was on his face. Temari shook her head and shrugged her shoulders. No clue. Back to Sasuke, Naruto, and Kakashi. Sasuke was knocked back by a snake, while Kakashi was busy handling several of them on his own. Naruto was doing no better, for Orochimaru had his tongue around his neck and rose him in the air before slamming him against several trees and throwing him down on the ground. That hurt, Naruto muttered. Getting up, he had many cuts on bruises all over him, and his vest was now in ruins. Underneath it he wore his black ninja outfit. He simply grabbed the vest and tossed it away. Sasuke, I think I may have to use Kyuubi. If he didn't come back, we wouldn't be having this much trouble. Sasuke glared at Orochimaru, who only returned it with much more force. He slowly got up to stand next to Naruto. Suddenly the ground under both of them shifted and multiple snakes flew out and gripped their hands and feet. Sasuke was about to use his full-body Chidori, but Orochimaru quickly jumped down and stabbed him in the right shoulder, making sure to not hit anything vital. Now, I have you right where I need both of you, he smiled. No. Kakashi charged at the man, dodging the snakes attempting to stop him, and tried to stab him with his kunai, but Orochimaru easily deflected it, and kicked the man down. Now, don't interfere, Kakashi, he said as snakes began to slither around Kakashi's arms and legs, tightening him onto the tree. He struggled, but couldn't escape from the hold. Orochimaru grinned at the two children he had. Both were badly beaten up, and he had to admit, he wasn't in very good shape either. He was very lucky he managed to summon the snakes to assist him in taking them out. Now, since I have both of you, I assume you will want the curse mark from me, yes? Screw you. Naruto spat in his face. Now let me go and I'll kick you. Orochimaru ignored Naruto's protest and formed another clone of himself. I'll give you both it at the same time. It'll be fun to see you two suffer. Damn you, Orochimaru. Kakashi struggled to get out of his entrapment. The Hokage will be here any minute. Oh, Orochimaru said. Where is he then? It has been quite some time since you last said that. Don't you think he would be here by now if a large threat like I was around? At Kakashi's glare, he ordered the snake to knock the man out, fully intending on returning to him later. He then turned back to the kids. Now stand still, Naruto-kun. Even if I do get it, I will never fall into the darkness of the seal. Naruto shouted, and Sasuke has changed. He's not going to fall back onto the fake power that it gives. Fake? Orochimaru questioned. A smirk was present on his face. My dear Naruto-kun, I'd hardly call it fake, but if you must, I'll let you find out for yourself. Naruto and Sasuke were pressed harder against trees by the snakes, and Sasuke was beginning to droop from consciousness. The poison in his system was beginning to have its effect. No, he muttered, mustn't let it get me. Both of the Orochimarus began to extend their heads towards the necks of Naruto and Sasuke, ready to give them the seal. Suddenly Sakura crashed down from the trees and punched right through the neck of the clone, making it explode and saving Sasuke. She then saw Naruto was about to be bitten and did the most drastic measure ever. Naruto! She shouted as she dived towards him. All was silent. Orochimaru released his teeth from the neck of the child he had just bitten. He looked confused. This was not Naruto. What is this? He made his head retract back to his own body and looked wide-eyed as Sakura fell to the ground. A mark on her neck. No. You little bitch. I'm going to kill you. Sakura-chan. Naruto looked shocked, sad, and more than anything, angry. You, he looked at Orochimaru from Sakura, you bastard. Tears filled his eyes, and a red hue began to glow from them, you bastard. Red chakra erupted from him, destroying the snakes that were holding him, and with very surprising speed, he gave Orochimaru the hardest punch to the jaw he had ever received. Orochimaru flew far away and collided with another tree, making it fall down from where it once stood. He slowly climbed out of the rubble and looked on as Naruto had red chakra begin to cover all parts of his body, and so Kyuubi finally emerges. I won't underestimate you this time. Naruto shouted. His voice was a mix of his own and some other demonic voice. You poisoned Sasuke, and gave Sakura that mark. In return, I'm going to kill you. He charged at Orochimaru. A chakra tail formed right behind him. Orochimaru brought up his hands to block the blow Naruto was going to throw out, and was surprised when Naruto hit his arms that were defending his face, nearly breaking them both and making him fly further away. It's not over yet. Naruto shouted, and slowly walked at Orochimaru, two chakra tails flowing all over the place right behind him. Remember what I promised. Show me his power, Naruto-kun. Orochimaru laughed. As he flew through a set of hand seals and slammed his hands on the ground, causing a huge wall of rocks to come up from the ground in front of Orochimaru and bury Naruto. Naruto simply grinned evilly at it, and raised one arm, causing it to burn a hole right through the avalanche that was coming right upon him. You'll have to do better than that. Kill him. Naruto stopped in his tracks. He could feel his mentality beginning to turn to a more feral one. What is this? He could feel the power flowing through his veins. The want to kill was welling up inside of him, and he glanced at Orochimaru with hate in his eyes. Kill him now. No. Naruto shook his head. I promised Sakura-chan and Sasuke that I wouldn't use your chakra, you damn fox. Naruto tried to push it away, but one look at the two he mentioned, and all his reasoning went away. Sakura was curled up into a ball, holding in her screams of pain as the seal took its toll, and Sasuke was begin to get very sick because of the poison the blade pushed into his body. Now, kill. Kill. Naruto glanced up at Orochimaru, his sanity nearly depleted. Yes. Orochimaru. I will kill you. He charged once more, engaging combat with the one he swore to kill without using the Kyuubi's power. Sakura glanced up at the fight occurring, and then looked at Sasuke with the sword wound in his shoulder. She then curled back up as another wave of pain shot through her. Tears fell from her eyes for it hurt her so much. I need to help them. She slowly uncurled after the next wave, and wiped her tears away. Sasuke. She crawled over to him, and looked at the wound he had. I can't do this. She looked desperately at the wound. Blood poured out of it and onto the ground, and she could see bits of the poison seeping out. It's not as much as Gaara's butt. She tightly shut her eyes as the mark on her neck gave her another wave of pain, causing her to nearly scream out in pain this time. Can I do this? I need to concentrate, but with this pain. She touched the mark on her neck, and instantly felt the biggest wave of pain and screamed in pain as she looked down on the ground holding her head, tears freely falling from her eyes. It hurts. She looked at Sasuke and saw him beginning to pale. I need to save you. She thought, and brought out her water. It was half empty, a little more than enough to finish this. She poured it on her hands and concentrated her chakra to form a bubble of water on her hands, but when she brought out her chakra, the curse mark reacted violently, causing all the water to splatter to the ground and her to once more fall over in pain. Damn it! She shouted, clutching the side of her neck, which only caused more pain. She was close to passing out from it all. Sasuke. Don't die. She quickly grabbed her water once more, and concentrating her chakra, she knew this was going to hurt her, but if she failed Sasuke would die. She formed a bubble and the intense pain returned once more. The bubble wavered, but she kept it stable as it turned a slight green hue. She put it over Sasuke's wound and pulled the poison out of it, and then followed the most logical path it would have taken through his body. Every 5 seconds she would stop as an intense wave of pain went through her and she kept in a scream. Finally, after extracting all the poison, she threw the water in her hands away into the wild, and focused on closing the hole. She gathered a little bit of chakra at the tip of her fingers and slowly connected each side of the flesh until the wound was closed. There, she muttered, closing her eyes as a few tears escaped and the pain continued to grow worse. She looked up and saw Naruto and Orochimaru fighting. Naruto, she whispered as she saw the 3 tails he now had and Orochimaru dodging each attack, a small smile on his face. He's playing with him. She asked no one in particular. She slowly stood up. The pain caused her to fall back down and clutch her neck once more. After a little bit, she got up. Naruto, she mumbled as she walked forth. Her mind was beginning to shut down, as she was about to fall unconscious. Naruto. Naruto attempted to slash Orochimaru, and only succeeded in getting mud all over himself as the one in front of him was another clone. Where are you, Naruto? Sakura shouted with the last of her might as the darkness finally filled her vision. She fell to the ground completely unconscious. Naruto glanced at her fallen form, then at Sasuke. You guys. He shook himself out of his daze, and as quickly as it came, his Kyuubi chakra went away. He didn't know, but at that moment, the demonic chakra was about to take him over. He was very lucky Sakura knocked him out of it so quickly. Well, Naruto-kun, you are powerful, but yet, not near good enough to take me on. I hope one day we can have a real fight where you needn't rely on that horrible demon, and instead fight without own powers. Orochimaru shrugged his shoulders. Either way, when you're that angry I can easily toy with you. If you could control that chakra, I would be in trouble. He then pulled out his sword. Now move aside as I go finish off your team. Do you really think I would do that? Naruto said as he stood in front of the man. They wouldn't let you get close to me, so I am not going to let them down. Poor Naruto-kun. Orochimaru said smiling. You're far too weak now to even stand a remote chance against me. What makes you think you could stop me from killing them all? As if on cue, at least a dozen men in Anbu robes dropped down and faced Orochimaru. Stand down, and we'll make your death quick. How about no? Orochimaru answered, and the man who asked the question was suddenly hit from behind by one of Orochimaru's snakes he summoned. At that distraction, he disappeared. Don't let him get away. All of you go after him. We'll allow the Hokage to help these people here. He turned to Naruto. Go check on your team, we'll go get him now. Naruto didn't even wait for him to finish as he turned towards his team. Naruto ran over to the fallen body of Sakura, Sakura-chan. He grabbed her and put her head in his lap. He looked at the left side of her neck and saw the curse mark pulsing an almost purple hue. No, it's all my fault. Why did you do this, Sakura-chan? He felt tears leaving his eyes. He then picked her up and walked over to Sasuke, where he put her down next to him. At least when they were both asleep, he couldn't hear the pain they both must have been going through at the last moments of their consciousness. After making sure his two teammates were fine, he went over to Kakashi and checked his status. You're not poisoned. Naruto let out a sigh of relief and began to try and shake the man awake. Kakashi-sensei, are you there? It took a little bit, but Kakashi was beginning to regain consciousness. I have a huge headache. Naruto. Anko landed in the middle of the completely destroyed clearing. Trees were blown out of their roots, and the ground was completely vaporized. What the hell happened here? Naruto spat on the ground. Orochimaru happened. He glared angrily at Kakashi. You guys knew he was coming. What took you all so long? I know you felt our chakra flare while we were fighting him. Because of how late they were, Sakura got the cursed mark, and Sasuke could have died. Tears fell from his eyes. I had to use Kyuubi. Even when I told them I would never rely on his power again. He fell to the ground. His morale for the moment was completely depleted. Another dozen Anbu appeared in the clearing. Most were shocked to see the place in such ruins, and glanced at the team that supposedly caused it all, fighting Orochimaru. The Hokage himself suddenly appeared, and shot Naruto a concerned look. Naruto. He shouted as he ran over to the boy. Old man. Naruto muttered. He looked up and glared at the man. You knew this was going to happen. Where were you? We could have killed him if you had gotten here sooner. Naruto felt betrayed, angry, and most of all saddened that the one man he trusted the most had done nothing during their fight. Sarutobi sighed. He knew this would happen, but let it go on anyways. Naruto. I knew Orochimaru was here. We just needed to assemble the Anbu, and warn Anko about it so that. Why didn't you come yourself? You could have just forgotten about the paperwork and broken the rules, and Konoha's most deadly criminal would be dead. Instead, you did absolutely nothing to help us. Kakashi went over to Naruto and grabbed him by the collar. Naruto. You're stepping over your boundaries. You can't speak to the Hokage like that. Whatever, Kakashi-sensei. Naruto muttered. At least you came right away. Kakashi paused, and let Naruto go. We need to get Sakura and Sasuke to the hospital immediately. You too. That battle took a lot of you all, I can tell. The Hokage nodded, but couldn't hide his shame. Naruto is right. I should have acted faster. I was too busy following village protocol, and look where it got me. Konoha Hospital. There was a periodic beep that sounded every few seconds, it seemed. Naruto shook his head and could feel bandages wrapped all around him without even opening his eyes. He grunted in annoyance and slowly opened his eyes. White ceiling, white walls, medical equipment to his right. Yep, the hospital. How he despised this place. He lifted his head off the pillow it was on and glanced over at the other two beds in the room. Sakura was on the one next to him, and Sasuke was the furthest one from him. From his view, his eyes watered slightly when he saw the mark on Sakura's neck, but a sigh of relief came out when he saw that there was apparently another seal covering it. Thank you, Kakashi, he silently thanked. He moved his fingers around a bit, and he managed to lift himself up. He then looked over to Sasuke, who was in the same condition he and Sakura seemed to be in. However, Sakura looked a lot less beat up than both he and Sasuke. Sakura-chan, he muttered, looking at her still form. The only thing movement was her chest as it slowly rose and went back down after each breath she took. I'm sorry. That was going for me. Why did you get in the way? He knew there would be no answer, so he looked back at his body. Bandages were wrapped all around him, and some needles were stuck in his body, taped to him. Why did they do this when they could simply do medical jutsu? He pondered, but shook his head as he grabbed one and slowly pulled it out of himself. Once he got all the needles out, he threw the blanket off of himself and got out of the bed. He felt pretty good actually. He had no idea why he was in the hospital, but was pretty sure that if Sakura weren't in this condition, she'd be able to list off all the reasons without even looking at him. He felt the material of the white clothes he was now wearing. It was actually pretty soft. He walked over to her and got some hair out of her face, putting it behind her ear. There you go. He again looked at the curse mark to make sure that it was really there and silently cursed to himself. The door suddenly opened and Sarutobi walked in. He still wore his Hokage robes, but his face was twisted in worry and sadness. Naruto felt no sympathy towards the man. Naruto. He spoke. I apologize. I'm sure you do. He glanced at Sakura and begrudgingly said, thanks for sealing up that for her. He looked away, not wanting the man to get the impression that he was forgiving him. Sarutobi sighed. He knew this would happen, but he hadn't expected to be thanked for the seal he and Kakashi put on Sakura. You're welcome, Naruto. When Naruto didn't answer back and continued to look at Sakura, he spoke up again and said, you all have been asleep for 4 days so far. The second part of the exam is coming to a close soon. Really? Naruto muttered, paying him almost no heed. Sarutobi looked down and said, look, Naruto. What happened in there? The place was destroyed, and you all were badly injured. You had chakra burns all over your body and many injuries and broken bones. Sasuke was in a similar state, but we found traces of poison, which we quickly got rid of, and Sakura's chakra pathways were in horrible condition. We almost called in a Hyuga to help us with her. Naruto looked down. Sasuke, Kakashi, and I were actually doing very well against Orochimaru. It was when he summoned his snakes that we had a lot of trouble. I think he stabbed Sasuke with his sword, and I used Kyuubi to fight him. Sarutobi nodded. That explains yours and Sasuke's condition, but what happened to Sakura? Sakura-chan. Naruto glanced at her once more. When Orochimaru had me and Sasuke pinned down, he was going to give both of us the mark, but she destroyed the one going for Sasuke, and didn't have enough time to save me from my fate, so what does she do? He was near shouting. She jumped in front of the one that was going for me. He looked angered. I have Kyuubi in me, you know. I think I can handle that seal. He fell to the ground, near breaking down. Sarutobi looked at the child, the one who only days ago seemed so strong and could easily lead them, and he was now reduced to this. Naruto. He stated firmly, I know that you may not trust me now, but I need you, and so does this village. This attitude you have is acceptable, considering what has just happened, but we need you to be strong for now. Naruto looked at Sakura, then the Hokage once more. I don't know. He then got a determined look in his eyes. No, you're right. I need to save this village. Good to hear. Both Sarutobi and Naruto looked over to Sasuke, who nodded towards them. Sasuke. Naruto ran over to his bed and hugged the guy near to death until he let go. Thank God you're okay. I thought Orochimaru stabbed you with that poison blade. Sasuke looked thoughtful and said, I think a medic came at just the right time. He motioned his head towards Sakura. I'm amazed at how screwed up we got this timeline within 3 years. Yeah, Naruto agreed, but we did more good so far than bad. Sasuke shrugged. Possibly. We don't know though. 3 years is a short time, and anything can happen in the future because of the things we are doing now. He then looked at Sakura once more and sighed. I'm glad she lived getting the curse. I was nearly passed out when she got it. I wish I could have helped. Orochimaru is still too strong for us. Naruto frowned. What can we do to bring him down to our level? Hokage-sama. Sasuke looked very serious that moment. Orochimaru has come back from the future like we have. He's much stronger than he was at this point in our old timeline. I think we could have killed him if it weren't for that fact. He got out of bed in a similar fashion of Naruto and walked over to Sakura's bed. You'll need to help her out when she wakes up. Sasuke said immediately. When she awakes, she'll quickly find the power of the seal behind a barrier of sorts, and it is very tempting to use. Sasuke sighed. Remember when I first got the seal? I used the power instant because I had no clue what it was. Naruto got a worried look on his face. Don't worry. I'll be here to help her through that. Good. I refused the help when I needed it, and since Sakura is not me or a complete bitch, I think she'll quickly take your assistance when she needs it. Sasuke explained. Sarutobi watched as the children seemed to grow much less tense and chatted. You two, make sure to get back into your beds when you're done chatting. Even though both of you look pretty well, I'm sure if Sakura here wakes up, she'll need a familiar face to help her out. Naruto glanced at the Hokage. I understand. He simply said. He left at that. Sasuke and Naruto stayed up to chat for a while longer, figuring out what needed to be done. After a little while, they both decided it was time to head to sleep, and went into their own hospital's beds for the night. Later that night, Sakura stirred in her sleep for the first time that night. It was nearly 2 in the morning, but at that instant she felt a pang of sickness hit her. She suddenly got up and rolled off her bed. Luckily her physical wounds weren't near as bad as her internal injuries, and she didn't harm anything when she fell. When she hit the cold floor, she tried to hold it in, but within only a matter of seconds, her resistance was destroyed and she threw up on the floor. She let out a whimper and wrapped her hands around herself, suddenly feeling miserably cold. Naruto, she whispered, praying that he was somewhere near. Her mind was too confused to figure out where she was, and she was frightened to say the least. The last she saw was Sasuke near death, and Naruto was in Kyuubi mode trying to kill Orochimaru. She then remembered the one thing that shocked even her. She slowly and shakily brought her hands up to her neck, and felt the spot where the mark was. She felt warmth, calming warmth. It was as if it beckoned her to come to it, and use it. No, she whispered, knowing what it was. She could feel it, and knew that it was the power of the mark she had gotten. She tried to stand, but her constant shaking, plus the fact that when she tried to another pang of sickness hit her, made it difficult. She quickly fell to the floor and held her chest as she breathed in and out rapidly, hoping she would throw up once more. Naruto, she whispered again. She felt again the power from the seal. She looked around and could only see darkness. She then felt tears come out of her eyes as she was about to accept the power and warmth the seal was going to provide her. She then felt 2 warm hands wrap around her back, and a soothing voice saying, Sakura-chan, I'm right here. Please, don't be afraid. She didn't even resist as the boy behind her picked her up and brought her back up to her bed. It definitely beat trying to do it herself and possibly having to get sick some more. Naruto, where are we? She held onto him as he put her on the bed, not letting him go. It's okay, Sakura-chan. We're in the hospital. Kakashi sealed up the mark for you. He looked almost pleading. Sakura-chan, I promise to never use Kyuubi, if you never use the curse mark. Please. Naruto, I wouldn't use the mark even if it were life or death situation. She felt like smiling then, having someone there to hold her that she knew she would be safe with, and not using a huge powerful source now within her was something to be proud of. Naruto was about to leave, but Sakura's grip on him tightened. Naruto knew he could easily break the grip. It was definitely weak from what Sakura would normally do. Naruto, she sounded as if she was about to break down. Don't leave me. Sakura-chan, he was about to protest, but he saw the pleading look on her face, and some fresh tears on her frightened-looking face caused him to choose otherwise. Fine. He gave in. She scooted over so he could have the spot next to her, and he laid down there. Naruto knew that she was in a near-panicked state, and anything he did could scare her. It was so different from her usual tough act. He closed his eyes, and felt Sakura scoot over and wrap her arms around his arm, and put her head against his shoulder. Night, Naruto, she said, drowsing to sleep. Good night, Sakura-chan, he said, a smile on his face when he felt her sigh of relief. He knew what it was like to be alone when you needed someone, and for him to be there for Sakura would definitely make his lifetime. He was sure that if he died right now, he'd die the happiest man in the world. However, thoughts about what happened ruined that chain of happy thoughts. The two both dozed off shortly after getting together, and the night continued on. Next morning. Wake up, you two, Sasuke muttered. Even at a time like this they let their hormones act up. He had just woken up, and when he looked to see if Sakura was all right, he saw her and Naruto sleeping together. It was true that Sakura was the one that seemed to be making the advances on Naruto, since she seemed to be completely wrapped around Naruto, and Naruto simply snored as if nothing was going on. A few minutes, Naruto sighed, and he tried to turn over only to stay in place due to Sakura's grip on his body. He opened his eyes for a moment and glanced at Sakura before his eyes widened in recognition. Sakura-chan. What the? He looked around and then calmed down. Oh yeah. Sakura opened her eyes and looked around confused. Her mind was finally registering things at its normal rate, and she glanced at the boy she was currently holding in her grip. She looked very confused. Naruto, why are you here? She asked. After that moment, all of last night hit her like a ton of bricks, and she lowered her eyes. Oh yeah. Naruto felt her forehead. You feeling better now? He asked. Sakura blushed slightly and let go of him to climb out of the bed. Not really. She answered. I feel kind of nauseous still, but not nearly as much as last night. I'll help you around today. Thank you, she said as she lay back down as she began to feel dizzy sitting up for too long. How long did this last for you, Sasuke? I wasn't feeling well for a few days after getting it last time. Ugh, I hate being sick. She moaned as she brought an arm up to her forehead and felt her temperature. I think I'll be able to move around with you guys though, I am not that bad right now. No one bothered to argue with her, knowing she would be very insistent, and that it would be easier to just allow her to come with them. Sasuke decided to speak up. We didn't fare very well against Orochimaru. You think? Naruto replied angrily. He kicked me while I was using Kyuubi. He nearly killed you, and gave Sakura-chan. He looked away from her, knowing it would probably be a very sore spot to talk with her for near the rest of her life. She looked up. If I need to. She looked at Naruto straight in the face. I said last night that I wouldn't use it no matter what, but, if I have to, she looked towards Sasuke, I will use it to protect you too, instead of getting in the way like I did. Naruto looked shocked and angered. No. You can't. The more you use it, the more it can manipulate you to do things. Naruto. Sakura sounded very serious. If you're going to die and it's the only way, there's no way I am not going to use it. It feeds on negative emotions. Sasuke spoke up. It amplifies them a lot. Even now you probably feel a lot more pessimistic than you had been before you got here. Just use it in serious emergencies. The more often you use it, the more corrupted you get from it. It changes your thoughts, actions, everything. Please, do not use it, Sakura. It will never benefit you. I had to learn that the hard way. Sakura glared at him, but sighed when he glared back. She knew he was right. Okay, I will only use it in life or death situations. With that out of the way, Naruto began. I just want to apologize to you both for using Kyuubi during the fight. It was a mistake. I was just angry that he hurt you guys and Gaara during the fight. Naruto, if you have to, use it. Sasuke said. When both Sakura and Naruto looked at him in shock, he added, not the full potential, but just enough to give you a small boost in ability. You know, no tails. What? Naruto looked shocked. You're telling me to use it now? No. He shook his head. I'm never using Kyuubi again. He could almost say he heard an evil growl coming from within him. Naruto looked determined until his eyes widened and he said, the old man, you guys know he screwed us over. He said harshly. Sasuke shook his head once more. No, Naruto. He did what he had to do. He has a village to protect and run. He can't just go risking his life. That is what the Anbu was built for. Sakura nodded along. I have to agree. As much as I hate it, and as much as I can't stand to see Hokage-sama's face right now, we need him to help us too much for hating him to be any use right now. The door suddenly creaked open before Naruto could protest. The person walked in and bowed. Hokage-sama sent me. He has asked you three to stand by him while the preliminaries on the second exam begin, and stay to watch the show. The trio looked at each other and nodded. Tell him we'll change and be right with him, Naruto answered, another smile visible on his face. Old man, I may not trust you, but they're right, we need you now more than ever. Okay guys, I'm going home to change, I'll meet you all there. Sakura said and jumped out the hospital window, as if she weren't even sick that morning. Naruto and Sasuke glanced at each other. Shall we go home? Sasuke asked. Naruto nodded, and the two were on their way. Preliminary round building. Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura all appeared in the building in front of the Hokage, who was currently standing giving a speech to the children who managed to pass. The three looked behind them to see all the genin giving them odd and questioning glances. Naruto looked away from the man and simply walked up to his side, which his two friends did as soon as he did. Naruto and Sakura stood on his left, while Sasuke stood on his right. The three wore their Chunin vest once more, each getting a new replacement for the ones lost in the forest. The only difference was that Naruto and Sasuke had some bandages going through their hair, and Sakura had on a higher collar shirt than normal to hide her mark. Now, Sarutobi cleared his throat. Is there anyone who wishes to drop out now? This gave Naruto the chance to see who was actually left. Let's see. Team 8, 10, and Guy are all here once again. He cheered a little in his mind. Now, who else? Gaara's team, the Sound team, and Kabuto's team. He was surprised. It was the same teams minus them to have passed last time. Kabuto raised his hand and grinned at Naruto and Sasuke. He still didn't know that Sakura had the curse mark and not them. Hokage, I'd like to leave. His two teammates did the same as well, leaving only 15 people to fight. After a moment of silence, everyone assumed the rest of the genin were prepared to fight. Hayate, you may continue now. Sarutobi said and leaned back in his chair as the Junin he called jumped down from some place. Thank you, Hokage-sama, he said and turned towards the children. Now, you all are about to compete, because there are still too many of you here. However, there are 15 of you, and that means that one of you don't have to fight. Whoever is remaining when the board randomly picks all the fights will not have to battle today. All the genin nodded, most hoping that their name wouldn't appear on the board on the top left corner of the little arena they were located in. With that said, would you all please go up to the stands as we begin? Everyone began to walk up to the stands. Once up there, the board began to flash all the names of the people competing in the preliminary rounds, and it suddenly flashed, Aburame Shino vs. Abumi Zaku. Shino slowly walked down the steps, while Zaku jumped right over the railing. Sakura noticed that his arms were both fine, and nothing was in a sleeve. That was because of Sasuke. She felt uncomfortable suddenly and rubbed the spot on the back of her neck once more. Hayate walked in the middle of the field and after a huge coughing fit said, "Fight." Naruto huffed as he saw these two. He knew what the outcome would be, no point in watching it once more. He looked around the room and saw the Sound Junin, and his eyes became silted and red. He looked away and shook his head. He couldn't make a scene here. He looked back at the battle and saw Shino beginning to explain his techniques. His bugs are really good. He began to look annoyed as 2 minutes passed and the two were still looking at each other. Zaku sucks. Doesn't he know Shino is getting him into a trap the longer he sits there and does nothing but listen to Shino? He looked at all the other Anbu and Junin standing around them, and noticed the same look of distaste. He avoided looking at the Hokage, for he still hadn't gotten over what he had done. Orochimaru is still stronger than us. Even after 3 years of intense training, he could still kill us. He closed his eyes and mouth to hold in his angry shout. He knew Sasuke and Sakura both were as equally pissed as he was, but they knew that going off at the Hokage wouldn't really be the best thing to do. You lose, Shino said as his bugs suddenly surrounded Zaku. No. Zaku brought both his hands up to both sides of him, and attempted to shoot out a blast at each, but Shino's bugs were in his shooting devices, and caused his hands explode off of him. Ah! He screamed. He now had no attacks. Shino looked at him with no sympathy. You will never be a good ninja now. Zaku gave Shino one last glare before his eyes rolled to the back of his head. He was completely knocked out. Hayate looked at the rather gruesome sight and hesitated a bit before calling out, Aburame Shino is the winner. His team cheered for him, and so did the rest of the rookies who were in the exam, besides Shikamaru, who a little too lazy to do such a thing. Once Zaku had been taken away, and Shino walked back up to the stands, the board began to pick random names once more. Everyone looked up until it read, Nara Shikamaru vs. Tsuchi Kain. Another of the same fights. What are the chances of that? He knew how this fight would turn out, so he ignored a majority of it until the very end of it. Shikamaru threw several kunai as did his opponent, for she was in his shadow jutsu. Suddenly, right when she was about to dodge them like Shikamaru, the wall got in her way, and the kunai deflected off of her headband, knocking her out. Winner. Nara Shikamaru. Hayate called out. Shikamaru glanced at Naruto, and gave him a questioning glance once more. Why does he keep giving those looks to me? Naruto wondered as he grinned and gave the boy a small wave. Shikamaru nodded at him and walked away. He's onto something. Everyone looked up to the board once more until it flashed. Kankuro vs. Yamanaka Ino. Ha! Ino shouted. This will be too easy. She walked down to the arena while Kankuro did as well. Both of them faced each other, each with their own grin. After Hayate said fight, the two still stayed like that. Finally, after what seemed like several minutes, Kankuro said, "Well, you're a pretty good looking girl, too bad I'm going to have to kick your." Ino smirked. "I know I am." Then her face became serious. "You won't be able to beat me." She brought her hands up to her family jutsu, to which Kankuro laughed at. "Trust me, girl, that jutsu won't do anything to me at all. Maybe you can just quit and we'll see what happens," he said. "No one can resist this ability." Ino called out, but still a little more hesitant to do it now. Ino suddenly shook her head, determination in her eyes once more. "You can't win against me." She then shouted, "Shintenshin no jutsu." Her head suddenly seemed to fly back, and she slumped to the ground. Everyone looked at Kankuro, who seemed to be struggling for a moment, but suddenly began to break into many little pieces until there was a wooden puppet standing there. The bandages that were once wrapped around Kankuro's back suddenly unraveled and Kankuro stepped out of them. "Ha! I told you that you couldn't do it to me." He walked over to her and put a kunai to her throat. "I guess this means I win." Hayate coughed a little before saying, "Kankuro wins." There was very little sound at his victory, but not many people really cared. The rookies were all bummed that their streak of Konoha Genin getting through was broken, and the Sand siblings really weren't all that surprised. Kankuro brought Ino back up to the Genin and then walked over to his own team. Hayate looked up to the board along with everyone else to see who was going next. It then flashed. Hyuga Neji vs. Hyuga Hinata. Hinata looked shocked and afraid as she glanced at Neji, who was currently glaring at her. Hinata. She turned around to see Kiba. "Hinata, we all know the situation with Neji. If you know you're going to lose, please give up. He will not hesitate to kill you." "Yes, Kiba-kun." Hinata glanced back at the floor. "Should I do this?" Neji walked down to the floor, silently awaiting Hinata to get down and begin their fight. He glared at her, and called out, frightened, "Hinata-sama." And no. She walked down and looked at her opponent. She glanced at Naruto, who was besides the Hokage, and his mood dropped even more when he wasn't even paying much attention to her fight. He was looking off towards the Sound Junin near him. She then glanced up at the stands and saw Shikamaru, who, when he noticed her looking at him, he gave her a thumbs up. "I'll fight my best." She nodded towards Shikamaru and turned towards Neji. "Shall we begin?" Neji saw the look in her eyes, and began to speak. "Hinata, you're too weak. It's obvious that you can't beat me, I can see that. Just get the stupid match going already." Shikamaru shouted, cutting the boy off from his speech. Neji gave him an annoyed glare, to which Shikamaru gave him a bored look. "I see," Sakura said, watching the match. Shikamaru did that so Neji wouldn't finish his speech and make Hinata too afraid to fight him. "If I remember this fight though, I know Neji will try to kill Hinata if she keeps resisting." She looked slightly worried. Hayate looked at the two, and when he saw the determined look in both their eyes, he said, "Begin." Neji instantly activated his Byakugan and ran at Hinata, who took a little time to activate hers and defend from Neji's attack. She quickly dodged to the left in a fluid motion and struck her palm out, attempting to hit Neji in the chest. Unfortunately, Neji was able to get out of the way and tried to strike her again, but she once more moved out of the way of his attack. The fight went on like this for a little bit until Neji grabbed Hinata's hand and struck a few points on it before jumping back a meter. "Hinata-sama, I just made your right hand completely useless for this fight. You're proving to me that you're a worthless heir to the clan." Hinata looked down with a pained expression on her face. He's right, she thought. She slowly raised her head and glanced once more at all her friends. Kiba was mouthing to her to quit the match. The rest gave her a worried glance, and Shikamaru glared at Neji before giving her another thumbs up, and mouthing good luck. She looked at Neji. Neji-kun, I will not lose to you. She slowly got up. Hinata-sama. Neji sighed. He looked at Sasuke and nodded. I don't want to hurt you anymore. He nearly whispered. Only Hinata could hear him. Sasuke gave him a weird look. I wonder if I taught that guy a lesson after all. He smirked as he watched the two talk. Hinata-sama. I know uncle won't like it if you simply drop out, so I'll just knock you out without hurting you anymore. He walked forth, and then ran once Hinata raised her guard. He and her fought for a little more before Neji grabbed her hand without disabling it, and spun around her until he had a clear shot to the pressure point on her neck and pressed it, knocking her out cold. Hayate got a closer look before saying, Winner, Hyuga Neji. Lee watched as Neji helped Hinata get to the medical room and turned to his sensei and Tenten and asked, I recall Neji hating his cousin. Why did he just knock her out and is helping her out right now? Lee. Guy said, Neji has had a change of heart. He now realizes that all my teachings are right. Tenten glared at him for a little bit before saying, no, he probably sees Sasuke as a role model for whom to be like. He knows Sasuke has gone through much worse than him, so he strives to put the past behind him and forgive his cousin, and forget about the whole stupid fate thing. I hope anyway. Tenten. Guy said. What? She asked, a little annoyed. Guy pointed to the board that flashed, Tenten vs. Kaneda Dosu. Ah, she exclaimed, it's finally my turn. She waved at Guy before jumping down, extremely excited that she was going to be fighting now. Dosu grinned and appeared down there as well. Ha, I get to fight a silly girl. He said. A grin was on his face. This will be too easy. What does that mean? Tenten yelled, a vein popping out of her forehead. I won't be a pushover. Dosu laughed. Of course, but then again. You're a girl without a family name, so that means you're going to be easy for you don't have any special jutsus. He could see he had hit a sore point of Tenten's when she gave him a glare that could rival the most evil person in the universe. Hey! Sasuke shouted, startling all those around him. Your threats are horrible, and to pick out such simple things proves to us all in this room that you're a worthless piece of trash. Dosu gave him a glare of his own, obviously pissed that this boy was defending the girl. What is she to you? Why are you even defending her? You do realize this is the exams, and you can't distract us from the fight at all. He looked rather pissed. Sasuke laughed. She's a really close person to me. He glared at him, turning his Sharingan on for added effect, and if you dare say anything like that again, I won't hesitate to kill you. Whatever. Dosu looked away from Sasuke, who had deactivated his Sharingan. Look, girl, I'm going full power now. He charged her and tried to hit her, but she jumped far away and did some seals. Here we go. She raised her hand to her mouth and said, Kaden, Hausenka no Jutsu. Though the multiple flames weren't as big as Sasuke's, they did their job as Dosu avoided them, and got hit by a single one, causing a lot of damage. Tenten coughed out a little smoke and then grabbed 2 scrolls and unsealed all the weapons she had in them and began to throw them one after another at the guy. He managed to dodge several, but there was always a stray one that would manage to hit him. When she finished with those 2 scrolls, hundreds of kunai, shuriken, and other throwing weapons were scattered across the floor, and many of them were sticking out of Dosu, who looked to be in bad condition. You bitch, he breathed heavily. You're my weakness. I can't beat a long-ranged fighter when I need to be in close range in order to use my technique. He breathed in once more and attempted a few steps before falling down into unconsciousness. Hayate looked at the 2 children who finished their fight within maybe 2 minutes and sighed. You know, I didn't even say to start the fight yet. He coughed and said, anyways, the winner is Tenten. She cheered, and turned towards Sasuke and blew him a kiss, to which he smiled at her. His mood was considerably better after that fight. Tenten went up while the medics all grabbed Dosu and left. All the kunai on the ground were gathered, and would be given back to their rightful owner after the whole preliminary rounds were over. The board began to mix names until it came to Gaara vs. Rock Lee. Yes. Lee shouted. I knew I would be second to last to go and fight. My dear student. Guy shouted and looked down at Lee. Please, make me proud and beat this child. There is something you must know about him though. He closed in on Lee and said, that gourd, it looks very suspicious. Lee looked shocked as he wrote down what Guy just said in his notepad. Lee. Don't bother writing it down. You must remember that you will not have time to look through that as you fight. Guy exclaimed and patted him on the back. It looks like your opponent is eager to fight as well. Now go down there and win. He shouted. Lee jumped down and said, I am pleased that I will get to fight you. You seem very strong, and will aid me in my quest to fight Neji and Uzumaki. Begin. Hayate shouted, making sure to actually say it before the two genin actually began to fight. Gaara completely ignored him and slowly had his sand gather around him. He then looked up at Lee and made his sand begin to go towards Lee at a crawl. Lee easily jumped away from the sand and began to run towards Gaara. He threw out his hand, and was shocked when he found that a wall of sand got in his way. Sand, he muttered before he attempted to kick, and then punch again. All of his attacks were useless against Gaara's wall of sand however. Mother wants to play. Gaara smirked as he controlled his sand to quickly grab Lee by his ankle and began to swing him around the arena. He slammed the boy hard against the wall, making him cough up some blood. Lee then flipped away, and onto a ledge far from Gaara. I can't win against him in my current state. He looked on to see if he could formulate any strategies to beat him when he suddenly heard his sensei speak up. Lee, take off your weights, he shouted. But Guy-sensei, you told me to do it only if I need to protect someone. Lee said back. Guy smiled and did his good guy pose. Lee, I said it's okay to do it. Yes, Guy-sensei. Lee saluted him, then sat down to take off his leg warmers and then took off the weights. Everyone thought they were not too much, besides Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura, but they suddenly fell to the floor with a huge explosion following. Lee then dashed off to Gaara and broke right through his wall of sand with one punch. Gaara's face betrayed him as his eyes widened, and he looked around for the source of damage. Lee suddenly appeared under him and kicked him way up into the air, and then proceeded to kick him further up. When he reached the climax of his attack, he wrapped his bandages around Gaara, and spun him back down to the ground, hopefully finishing him. As the dust cleared, Lee was shocked to see Gaara getting up after such an attack. What? No one can withstand that attack. Mother, she wants your blood now. Gaara gave him a huge glare and began to beat Lee, who was too exhausted to do much against the onslaught. Lee, open the gates. Guy yelled down to the boy. Lee nodded, and focused on opening the gates within his body. Gaara decided to watch instead of attacking right away, just to see the attack. It didn't take long before Lee zoomed across the floor, and began to beat Gaara away, destroying his defense like it didn't even exist. Soon he began to kick him up again, ready to execute his lotus attack. Naruto's eyes widened as he glanced at Guy and saw him clasp his hands together in prayer, and he quickly turned to Lee and saw him stop momentarily in pain. So that's when he switched places, he thought, when Lee did his signature move and the room exploded. Most of the genin were shocked to see how powerful Lee was, and most of the people in the room didn't notice Gaara switching places so quickly. Sasuke glanced at Naruto, who nodded. Gaara was about to hurt Lee pretty badly, and they were going to stop it before it happened this time. Lee was completely exhausted, and the sand had saved Gaara's life. Gaara raised his hand, and the sand went towards Lee. It wrapped around Lee's hand and foot, and right when he was about to crush them, and right before Naruto and Sasuke jumped out, Sakura called out, Gaara. That's enough. What? Gaara looked towards her. You're that one. He still held his hand up. You saved me, he muttered. He seemed to be in deep thought. Mother, what do I do? He then slowly relaxed his hand and dropped it back down. I win. He simply said. Hayate went over to Lee and checked his condition. Gaara wins. Lee is in no condition to fight right now. Gaara got up after a little bit and walked towards Sakura. The Hokage watched the scene with interest, as did the other Junin around them. Sakura, Gaara muttered, I have given you a favor. Mother doesn't like. He grinned evilly, sparing people, but you and they, he pointed to Sasuke and Naruto, will be good for mother. He then went away in a tornado of sand back up to where he was with his team and sensei. That was odd, Sarutobi whispered to Sakura, what did you do for him? Sakura shrugged, nothing important now. They all looked up at the board for the last fight. It flashed 3 names continuously until it said, Akamichi Choji vs. Tamari. Yes. Kiba cheered. He grabbed Akamaru and spun around in a circle with his dog. We're going to the finals by default. Tamari jumped down and Choji simply stared. Aw man, I don't want to fight her. She's scary looking. Asuma breathed in some of his cigarette and sighed. Choji, you do this fight, and I'll take you to your favorite place to eat. He knew that it would work easily. Yes. Choji jumped down and faced Tamari. Let's get this over with quickly so I can go out to eat. He said, all his chakra pulsing out so Tamari could feel it. You're just fighting to go eat? She asked. You're such a fat. Choji looked up, an evil glint in his eyes. What was that? You heard me, fat boy. She said, taunting him some more. Choji screamed and did his jutsu, Nikuden Sensha. He shouted and became a huge human boulder. He rolled straight at Tamari, who simply opened up her fan and swung it. The amount of wind made Choji go flying against the wall, easily destroying it. Tamari walked over, making sure to have a grip on her fan still. Hayate sighed and walked over to see if Choji was still ready to fight. He checked out the wall and sighed. Choji is knocked out. He looked towards Tamari. Tamari wins. Hayate coughed, then looked around the room. That concludes the preliminary part of the second exam. Now the Hokage would like to speak to you, so please all of you that passed come down here now. The passing students all agreed and went down to stand in front of the Hokage. Genin, Sarutobi said, you have all passed, and will be entering the third exam. Fortunately, it will be held in a month's time. Some complaining occurred, but he held his hand up for silence, which worked. You will use this time to recover from the exam today, and to train your abilities to the max. It will be a tournament between you 8. Even if you fail a fight, you will be considered to become a chunin. After a small period of time for them to let the information to sink in, he spoke up once more. Now, go leave and begin your training for the exam. Everyone bowed down to show their respect and left the room. Would you three like to come back to the tower? Sarutobi asked the trio surrounding him. Sasuke nodded. Why not? We need to plan for things anyway. So we do. Sarutobi sighed, knowing that these children weren't going to be going easy on him.